Ottawa.
In Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, December 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Feeling like minus 12. It's minus 6 in Ottawa, minus 5 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A spike in the number of people getting jobs last month. While economists had expected around 40,000 to be created, our business editor Mike Eppel explains it was a lot more than that.
The job market was roaring in the month of November. 153,000 jobs added to the economy last month, according to StatsCan. 79,000 in the part-time and full-time categories. Unemployment rate dropping by 0.7% down to 6%, so a huge drop-off in the jobless rate.
Now, the rate is within 0.3 percentage points of the 5.7 recorded in February of 2020, and that was just before the pandemic struck. StatsCan also says the number of long-term unemployed fell by 62,000, marking the first monthly drop since August. The agency says the decline in long-term unemployed was particularly sharp for Canadians who had been out of work for a year or more. South of the border, American employers slowed the pace of their hiring in November, but still added a solid 210,000 jobs. That was the fewest, though, for 1 month in nearly a year. Friday's report from the American Labor Department also showed the unemployment rate fell sharply to 4.2% from 4.6%. That is a historically low level, but still above the pre-pandemic jobless rate in the United States of 3.5%. City News Time, 9:01. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
The wind will settle down. Most areas will have plenty of sunshine today. The high just -4, -10 for the low, mainly cloudy tonight. And for the weekend, varying amounts of sun and cloud for Saturday. Could see some accumulating snow, though. The high -2. And then periods of snow on Sunday. Could see significant snowfall as well. High just -3. For today, the high -4.
And right now, feeling like -12 with this wind. It's -6 in Ottawa, -5 in Smiths Falls. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization will be releasing some updated guidance today on COVID-19 booster shots, just days after the urgent plea from the federal government. More from City News reporter Laura Carney.
The updated guidance on boosters comes in the wake of the discovery of the new COVID-19 variant Omicron. Earlier this week, the federal health minister announced they were explicitly asking the National Advisory Committee on Immunization to quickly come up with a revised view on where and how and to whom these boosters should be administered. Right now, among NACI's guidance, the committee has strongly recommended boosters for people who are immunocompromised, live in long-term care centers, and people over the age of 80. Now, despite its advice, many provinces, including Ontario, have already released their own COVID-19 booster strategies. Ontario just updating its third dose rollout yesterday. So starting today, Ontarians on dialysis can book their COVID-19 booster shot. And then on December 13th, everyone 50 and older will become eligible. Laura Carney, City News.
Now, for more about the booster and this new variant, stay tuned to the Rob Snow Show at 9:30. Guest host Derick Fage will chat with infectious disease specialist Dr. Isaac Bogoch. On Tuesday, the federal government announced travelers flying into the country from anywhere except the United States has to be tested for COVID-19 on arrival and isolate until they get the results. 3 days later, it's still not happening everywhere. More cases of this new COVID-19 variant, which the tests were aimed at catching, are being confirmed across the country. But for example, Toronto's Pearson says the feds haven't made this new mandate official and that it's still waiting for more details. I'm Andrew Boyle. For News Anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
Separating headlines
from hearsay.
It's the Rob Snow Show on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Good morning, Ottawa, and welcome to the Rob Snow Show. Rob off again today. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in. Oh my goodness, what a show. You know, and I I was a little concerned. Let me just be honest with you. I was a little concerned. I arrive here and David is grumpy. I mean, grumpy. I got nothing. Derick, there's nothing. We got to make news. We got to find news. We got to do something. We got to be the news. Calm down, David. That's why people tune into this show, because we are the news. We're jumping on things before other media outlets are on them. David is concerned today, friends. Folks, friends, folks. Friends and folks. David is concerned. Yesterday, not so concerned. Perhaps about the new COVID-19 variant, Omicron, or as I like to call it, Omicron.
That's pretty good.
Not bad, eh?
You could do movies.
Yeah, not too. Yeah, well, I've done some voice work in my time.
It shows.
I've done some voice work.
Nice.
But I mean, I'm adding some levity to the show to begin, friends, certainly. But no, there is cause for concern. We're getting word out of South Africa that it seems to carry higher COVID reinfection risk, in particular to those unvaccinated. That's what we're going to talk about at the top of the show here. David, tell me about your concerns. David, I'm here to listen. Like, let's pretend it's the talkback hour and it's David's hour only. However, we're condensing it into this next 8 minutes. David, talk to us.
Well, I didn't get a lot.
Why are you
I didn't get a
concerned?
lot of sleep last night. Not necessarily because of this, but when you can't sleep, you have a tendency to doom scroll. You know what doom scrolling is?
I do. It's something I think many of us do. We may not realize it's actually called doom scrolling, but many of us do it, David.
It's a bad habit, and it's the kind of bad habit where it's like smoking. You're doing it, and you know it's bad, but you can't help it. You can't stop yourself from doing it. I'm starting to have a healthy level of concern about this new COVID variant. I'm not panicking. I'm not stocking up the pantry or anything.
Right?
But
yeah. No. I understand.
We've been following the emerging evidence all week, and more comes out every day. And the latest on this new variant shows, I think it might be time that we can say that this is not nothing.
Yeah, agreed. They say, so this from, by the way, the Globe and Mail, Geoffrey York, this morning, from Johannesburg, by the way, and we're going to go live with him a little bit later on in the show. But the Omicron variant, they say, is 3 times more likely to cause reinfection in people compared with earlier variants of the coronavirus. That's new data from South Africa. The study released Thursday is the first strong indication of why Omicron, I don't know how to say it anymore. I've heard everybody say it's in different ways over the last few days, has surged so rapidly in countries such as South Africa, where a large percentage of the population was thought to have developed immunity to COVID-19 as a result of prior infection. That's an important point, David, right there.
It's very important, especially if you're in the camp of natural immunity is better than vaccines.
Yeah, and there's a few celebrities and athletes that certainly feel that way. I've run into a couple of people. As a matter of fact, I think I told you this is going back into the summer. I was confronted by somebody that said that because they were on a keto diet, that they have formed the antibodies.
That's how antibodies work. Sure.
Yeah. You just go on a keto diet. You form the antibodies to protect yourself from COVID-19 and all of its variants.
So the new data that we have in this morning from South Africa shows that this new variant, Omicron, is different from the Delta variant because the Delta variant, if you had natural immunity from a previous iteration of the virus, it protected you quite well against the Delta variant. This preliminary report out of South Africa suggests that's not going to be true this time around.
And as scientists have always said, right, vaccines are going to be the best weapon, not only against COVID-19, but of this new variant, right? Vaccines are likely to protect people against severe illness, hospitalization, and death from the Omicron variant. That's from Professor von Gottberg, who spoke during this briefing. Who is from the National Institute for Communicable Diseases in South Africa, one of the authors of the preprint study. I understand your concern, David. You know what? I think the major concern here, and we're going to talk about it a couple of times during the show, but as far as I'm concerned, I think, and I said this to you earlier, I think we've done a great job here in Canada as far as vaccinations goes, vaccinating our populations, people believing in the science behind it. We've done a great job here in Ottawa. The greater concern is on a global level. And if you look at some of, around the world and how poorly some countries have been able to vaccinate their populations for various reasons, that's the bigger concern, right? Because until we tackle this on a global front, it's not going away anytime soon. I still believe it's not necessarily ever going to go away, but we have to do something greater on a global level, and that takes, of course, a lot of cooperation from countries around the world.
I think we have finally gotten to a point, though, to put a positive spin on things. Let's not be all doom and gloom. It is Friday morning here after all.
That's true. That's a good point.
Shake it off, David. So
you're supposed to be the grumpy one here. I'm supposed to be the positive one.
I've brought you down to my level. That's not what we're supposed to be doing here. Now we're in this place where Canada and other rich Western countries have more than enough vaccine supply for our own populations. We're doing the booster shot thing. That's all very well and good. Even if this new variant is going to cause more significant illness, if it's going to spread faster than the Delta variant, we should be reasonably well insulated from the public health impact, the actual hospital loads, the people getting sick and dying, and the terrible things we saw in the first and second wave. But.
There's a but here.
Now we're going to start feeling the impacts of public health crises in these other lower vaccinated countries via supply chain impacts. This is going to be the big thing that I hope lights a fire under our butts and gets us moving on trying to address the demand and supply issues and the infrastructure issues in less industrialized countries. And I'm hopeful that this might actually be a turning point where we start to actually do something about vaccine equity. It is a big problem. We don't have a lot of concrete solutions. And thus far, the whole discourse on the thing has been, this is a bad thing. This is an issue. Vaccine equity is real.
Yeah.
Inequity is real. But we haven't gotten to the space where we're talking about solutions yet. I would like to see some policymakers coming up with some hard, fast solutions to this problem. Are we going to put together teams? Are we going to send doctors into these countries from other countries? Are we going to send military support? Are we going to do something?
Well, yeah, geez. David, you actually listened to me. I brought that up yesterday with you.
I listen to you all the time.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, David and I were speaking. I said, if you want to do something, then do it. If there's concern, then do it. If you care, then do it. We have the means to do it. I mean, you can't continue to just hoard vaccines. And I'm not saying, countries shouldn't look after themselves. That's inevitable. That's realistic. I'm not being unrealistic about the situation. But, there's also an ability to get people on board. I mean, there are countries begging for it. And, to work on, as David said, bringing in, if you have to bring in the military, if you have to do these big pop-up clinics in hard-to-reach places around the world, that's what you do. And then David, discussed supply chain issues. You want a real panic in North America? In Ontario? Let's narrow it down to Ontario.
Let's bring it closer to home for people. You may not have seen this story yet. It certainly has me concerned this morning.
Shop early. LCBO advises as supply chain woes cause shortages of some spirits.
Tequila may be the new toilet paper.
Oh, it could be. Never mind that, David. Champagne. For our rich listeners, for our wealthy listeners, it's going to be panic. Champagne continues to be in short supply, a spokesperson said. Hasn't vanished completely, but they are encouraging you, if you have that favorite champagne that you're looking for your New Year's bash with your very wealthy friends, then you better get it soon, David.
So if you're looking for a reason to care about vaccine equity, that's what we're trying to connect the dots for you here, people. There aren't enough vaccines in poorer countries in the world. COVID continues to circulate. We have supply chain impacts because of that. And now the LCBO might run out of booze.
Yeah.
That's the picture we're trying to paint for you here. That's where we're at.
You mentioned tequila. That's another issue. The single malt Scotch, tequila, wines from the Southern Hemisphere facing delays, and champagne. So if those are on your list, Make sure you get in there quick.
We're not trying to start a panic here either, but this is where we're at Friday morning. We started covering the story on Monday. The story all week has been that we don't have enough information. Now on Friday, we're starting to get that information, and we're starting to look forward to what does this really mean for us and what do we need to do?
And don't panic. And the other, everything in moderation, right? We tend to overindulge when it comes to food and beverage over the holiday season. Perhaps this will help encourage some of us to indulge less in the spirits and in the wines and the beers and the champagnes. Perhaps. Doubtful, but perhaps.
There's always a chance.
A lot to take in here, right? What does it all mean? We're going to be joined shortly by Dr. Isaac Bogoch, infectious disease expert with the University Health Network in Toronto. He's going to give us his impression of the latest emerging evidence, advise us on just how worried we should be. Also, coming up on the show, David, we expect to hear from the National Advisory Committee on Immunization later today with updated guidance on how provinces should be using booster doses in response to the threat of Omicron. Stay tuned to City News, by the way, for all the latest developments on that story throughout the morning. We're also listening to a press conference from Ontario's health minister just after 11 o'clock this morning. Christine Elliot is in Ottawa today. She's going to be at CHEO to make an announcement. If any news out of that, if there's any news out of that, we'll have it for you. And we'll, of course, get instant analysis from our panel of MPPs after the 11:30 news when we do the Queen's Park in review. Jam-packed show. Jam-packed show. We're going to talk some Senators. There was a win. I know. You're like, Derick, what are you talking about? The Sens and a win? Yes. They broke the 6-game losing streak last night. I mean, they got completely outplayed, but that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's a win in the books.
2 points, baby.
We got the 2. I mean, we're still dead last, but I think we've got 4 games in hand on the Montreal Canadiens, who I think we're only 2 or 3 points behind them. So, we may not be last in just a few days. So think about that, good listener.
Somebody told me this morning if the Senators win the next 15 games in a row, and if none of the other teams in the league play any games, they could actually still make the playoffs.
Oh, well.
So we can hope for that.
Okay. Now I'm feeling better already.
There you go.
Coming up next. How does the new variant complicate travel plans this holiday season? A lot of people concerned about this. We're going to ask local travel expert Elliot Finkelman and get his travel tips if you are on the move this month, or perhaps you even have vacation planned for January or February when many people go away. What about the March break, right? I'm sure a lot of parents were excited. Oh, we're coming through, we're getting closer to reopening, have a chance to get away from it all. You're going to want to pick up an extra battery pack for your phone or laptop. That's our hint of the day. Coming up next, as I said, Elliot Finkelman, travel expert. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
I'm blessed to be married to someone who is a scientist and spent a lot of time following what was happening over in China ahead of time. So he did give us the heads up that this was coming. Not that we believed him right off the bat, but when it did happen very, very quickly, we were prepared. We had hand sanitizer and we were set up to not close our doors. So we locked the kitchen down at Wellington Street, but we left this kitchen open. We put in protocols immediately. We only allowed our very small crew of 4 or 5 people in at the time. No deliveries were allowed to come in or out of the building without, they just weren't allowed in and out of the building. So we met them at the loading dock and had very strict protocols in place right away. We had masks and hand sanitizer and the whole thing. So we're very lucky from that perspective, and we're able to, learn as we went as far as doing small, individually packed caterings, the frozen soup program, food for the Ottawa mission. So we didn't have to close the kitchen and then learn how to reopen it. We just were able to modify and shift as we needed to. Because of our partnership with the Ottawa mission, we were able to very quickly help support them. They were able to send us some product and some supplies, so it wasn't a burden on our business, and we were able to supply the staffing and the packaging to help produce that when they needed it the most. And we produced about 1,400 meals a week to complement their meals, and we started our soup program right away. We realized very quickly that there was a need in the community to get together and all work together, not only to support local, but also just to support all the people that were suddenly in a position of, being locked down and not being able to get out. So by starting that soup program, our community, our clients got online and started making donations for the soups, and we were able to produce the soups and get them back out to people that needed it. We're right now currently making 150 liters of soup per week, but we've made, I would say, 5,000 or 6,000, easily since the pandemic. Probably more. I'd have to do the math, but lots. I think everybody in the city has to be very aware of how blessed we were to have great weather this summer and people were able to get out and about, and that's going to shift. So we do have to be much more aware of who our most vulnerable is, and I really think we have to work together as groups. There are so many organizations in the city that are doing something and contributing and working together, and I think it doesn't matter who, but see what you can do to just step up and help them, whatever it is, whether it's driving or delivering food, or someone has extra zucchini in their garden, or if they can afford to donate some money to any of these organizations. I just think we all have to work together. We're smarter and wiser than we were the first time.
Of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Rob off today. Derick, Fage here from Rogers TV filling in. We're going to dive right in because those of you that have booked travel, I am sure there is a sense of anxiety. Those of you that want to travel, again, a lot of confusion out there. Joining us is travel expert Elliot Finkelman. Elliot, welcome to the show. Great to hear from you.
Good morning, Derick. I want to see this movie. I think it's called Doom Scrolling Omicron Rising.
I like it, Elliot. I think the three of us can work on that.
I hear David is going to be starring in that.
I don't know. I've got the acting chops. I think David should be directing. But, maybe a cameo for David, right?
Perfect. Well, let's see if we can tone it down a little, maybe. Traveling is going to be a little more hassle than normal for the next month or two anyways, that's for sure. We're getting different feedback from different clientele, and we've got there's some that are nervous, some that are just fed up with the hassle.
Right.
And then you've got the I'm holidaying or bust crowd that they're just... Nothing is going to stop them. And I think once a little bit more snow hits the ground here, we're all going to start thinking a little bit more about that.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. But I mean, there's the big but here.
Yes.
What are the concerns? What should people be thinking about?
Well, a lot of people, the problem we have here is the vaccination. So you need to be double vaccinated. And depending on where you're going and what you're doing, you need the right combinations of the double vaccine.
Right.
Then the parents have got the added concern about what age is my child and what are the current rules, and they change, about what age group will be required to be vaccinated and or not vaccinated. So that's, and you need to prepare. Travel is not as easy as point, shoot, and go right now.
Right.
You need to sit down, relax. I'm always advocating travel professionals. That's what I do, so maybe it's a bit self-serving, but I think we've proved our value more than ever, especially during this. Using a 1-800 number right now is not necessarily your best bet. Even booking directly is not. If you've got to call in right now, the hourly waits are crazy. So you need to be prepared. So first of all, make sure you're vaccinated. That's essential.
Right.
Right now. Getting around without being vaccinated is going to be very, very, very difficult.
Well, and Elliot, vaccinated or not, there are testing requirements, right? If you're flying in or out of Canada, what are the testing requirements?
Okay,
right?
So going out to the States, for example, you're going to need an antigen test. That's quick, easy to get. It's got to be within 24 hours. That's possibly the complication. And we're not sure how this is all going to roll out yet, because what happens to somebody who's, got an overnight stay or that type of thing, or their connector is missed, or we're de-icing the plane and your 24 hours falls apart. What's going to happen there? I'm concerned. I'm traveling shortly in December. I've only got an hour and a half in Toronto. I'm not sure whether that's going to be enough or not. I know that when we traveled recently, it was enough, but it was tight. So what happens again if we're delayed a little bit? That's going to create some anxiety. So recommendation, if you are flying, get as long a layover as you can. So back to the testing, though. So going there, antigen, and it also depends on what country you're going to. Every country is different. To what the requirements are.
You got a lot of homework to do.
You do,
right?
You do. But, you can make it, it's not as complicated. Narrow it down to what you're doing. Then, a couple of websites you absolutely need to go to.
Okay.
Travel.gc.ca. That's your taxpayer dollars working very well for you, frankly, because they do a great job on it. It's travel.gc.ca.
That might be a first, eh? Tax dollars working really well for I'm kidding, people.
This time.
Kidding. Not everything. Not everything.
So you can go there and you will see what the requirements are. Then I would go to your specific airline and or tour operator's website to see what the requirements are entering countries. In addition to your vaccine and your vaccine passport or whatever document you're going to bring, you need to have downloaded the ArriveCan app for coming home.
Right, okay. Yeah.
If you don't, we just saw a story yesterday, some poor couple just crossed the border, didn't have ArriveCan, they have to quarantine. So you will not have to quarantine if you're vaccinated. If you've got your ArriveCan, you will have to take another test when you land in Canada.
Right.
Okay? But they'll do that at the airport. It's going to be an inconvenience. It's just a quick swab. Assuming, again, and they're not starting it just yet because they need to staff up for it.
Well, yeah, no kidding. I mean, it's got to be an airport-by-airport basis to do this, right?
It will be. It will be. So be prepared for that. That's why I think they're still requiring a PCR test when you're leaving the country you're coming from. Because until they get it ramped up so that we can land in Canada conveniently and realistically and get tested everyone that lands, then maybe that other requirement may drop off. But right now, you're going to get tested before you leave. You need to.
Right.
And when you come back. And again, watch the timing. Because sometimes it's 72 hours, sometimes it's 3 days, and there could be a difference. So that's another concern, the extra cost of that.
Yeah, Elliot, before I run out of time with you here, I wanted to talk insurance quickly.
Yeah, good point.
You should consider insurance. There's no doubt. And is it difficult to find travel insurance that may include insurance related to COVID?
No.
Okay.
A lot of the suppliers actually have it right away. And when I say that, land tour operators. Cruising is a little bit different, and there are special policies for that. And the cruise lines, we don't have enough time to talk about it now, they've got different programs in place to assist passengers, and they really it hasn't been a big issue yet. So fingers crossed on that.
Well, and I would also recommend seeing somebody like yourself, because you said there's so many things to think about, right?
We also come from a little calmer place about it, a little more practical. We have other guests that have been traveling, are traveling, so we get that firsthand experience. We've got a lot of I have partners across the United States, 400 or 500 of them that we deal. We talk all the time, and I called one last night. What was your experience when you landed yesterday? Right. So we can get that updated information. And the key is just don't panic. If you don't have a final payment due right away, slow down, relax. Some people are snapping to something now, and they're not going for 6 months. You're going to regret it. If we're snowed under, you may as well take that trip if you can. So let's just wait until we need to make a decision before we make decisions, and we'll have all the information.
Great advice as usual. Thanks so much for joining us, Elliot.
Thanks, Derick.
All right, take care. That's travel expert Elliot Finkelman. We continue on the topic of Omicron, COVID-19. We're just speaking travel, and there are travel bans. Is it a bad idea? What should people do around Christmas? We're going to have some of those questions answered right after the break. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, December 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, it feels like minus 12 in Ottawa, minus 6 degrees, Smiths Falls, minus 5. Here's what's making news right now. A tremendous boost to the economy, the federal government coffers, and personal well-being. 154,000 jobs created across Canada last month, according to StatsCan. That dropped our unemployment rate by 0.7 to 6% even. Now very close, just 0.3% to the rate in February of 2020. That's before the pandemic began. Good, but not as good, the United States. They created, with 10 times the population, just 210,000 jobs last month. Still enough, though, to lower their unemployment rate to 4.2%. Coming up shortly on the Rob Snow Show, Dr. Isaac Bogoch on the new strain of COVID-19 virus and the booster shots those over 50 may register for in Ontario starting a week from Monday. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization is going to release some new guidance today on the Omicron variant of COVID, once again coming up later today. City News Time, 9:32. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's the opinionated Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
On Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. It is 9:32. We turn our attention to infectious disease expert, clinician, investigator, and associate professor with the University Health Network in Toronto, Dr. Isaac Bogoch. Dr. Bogoch, welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me on.
Let's talk about the latest data that we have on boosters is from a new British study published in the Lancet Medical Journal yesterday. It finds 7 COVID vaccines all significantly increase immune response. Obviously this is some good news, and I think I'd like to concentrate on some good news after we've been talking about some of the bad news that we've heard from around the world and South Africa in particular.
Yeah, that's a really good study. They looked at immune responses to booster vaccines, and certainly there's different ways that you can do it and using different vaccines. I think the take-home point was that while all of them are helpful and useful, it looks like the mRNA vaccines are probably the best for using as a third dose, right. Just because you tend to mount a more robust immune response with those. But like for people who took 2 doses of AstraZeneca, great, go get a Moderna or a Pfizer for your third dose. You'll be in great shape. For those who mixed and matched, that's okay. Get a third dose of an mRNA vaccine for the third dose, and you'll be in good shape. I think that's the real takeaway I got from that one. Well,
yeah, and speaking on that, I mean, since you mentioned the mRNA, the Johnson & Johnson shot now available in Ontario. Some people concerned that it's less effective than perhaps Pfizer and Moderna. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's a great program, and it's really smart. Some people just don't want to take an mRNA vaccine for whatever reasons, lingering hesitation, right. Whatever. Let's just step back and think about what's the goal here. The goal is to get as many people protected as possible. And yeah, while it might not be as protective as the mRNA vaccines, it still is helpful. It still can reduce the risk of getting the infection. It still would significantly reduce the risk of a more severe infection. And I mean, listen, if this enables more people to get vaccinated, great. I mean, I appreciate you might line up 10 people and get 10 different answers here, but that would be my take. I'm all for it.
Some health and infectious disease specialists are calling for the government of Canada to focus on global vaccine equity, not travel bans. What do you think about this course of action?
Okay, like anything else, I think it's more complicated than meets the eye. For starters, vaccine equity, absolutely can't ignore it. Canada has to adhere to its commitments to the COVAX program. We have to help our brothers and sisters overseas. If we don't, we're just going to see more and more variants emerge like we're watching unfold right now. Number 2, people confuse border measures and travel measures. Okay, focused travel restrictions to places in Africa are not going to be that helpful. Okay, this Omicron variant is well beyond the borders of the country that we have focused travel restrictions to, well beyond the borders. I mean, every country in every continent has this minus Antarctica. every country in Western Europe and more and more countries are demonstrating evidence of community transmission. So these focused travel measures to Southern Africa, actually it's not even Southern Africa, now it actually doesn't make any sense, right? You've got Egypt, Nigeria, Malawi, which are thousands of kilometers away from each other.
Right.
And then several other countries in Southern Africa. It doesn't make any sense. Okay.
Yeah, and I think you could certainly discourage traveling to these countries for, as far as Canadians go. I mean, I would certainly, I know that the government has, right? They're discouraging travel to these particular countries. I think the argument, though, Dr. Bogoch, on the other side is, yes, you're right. I mean, it is in as you said, pretty much every continent around the world now, and you're seeing, community transmission more than, international transmission. But closing the borders to those countries, I mean, won't it do something? I mean, that's the argument, right?
So the third point, though, so number one, yes, vaccine equity. Number two, focused travel measures are performative and won't do much. But the third point is, again, maybe an unpopular opinion, but this is probably what's going to happen. The measures that they took, regardless of the country of origin, when you come to Canada, you get a test and you quarantine until your test is negative. That policy that does not discriminate against various countries around the world, that policy will likely help to slow things down a little bit. Of course, there's a gaping hole in that policy, and that gaping hole is the United States. But there's travel measures and border measures, and people confuse the two. The border measures can be helpful in slowing things down. The focused travel measures, when the virus is well beyond those countries, is probably not going to slow things down, with the caveat that we're not implementing border measures with the United States. And like we saw from before, that's where we imported a ton of our COVID-19, not from China, but from the United States and from Europe. So, listen, we can relearn this lesson time and time again. And those of us in the business, as we say, have seen this play out long before COVID-19, right? There were focused travel measures with the H1N1 pandemic a decade ago. Did that work? Nope. Slowed things down by a couple of weeks, but they didn't work as well. Like, we can just relearn these same lessons over and over again if we choose to, or we can actually take an evidence-based policy, realize you're not going to stop this freight train, but you can actually take measures to slow it down a little bit and use that. The other thing too is, like, think about this. Imagine you are a scientist, a researcher, or someone in a country, and you discover a new possible variant of concern. How likely are you going to be to share that information with the world?
That was my next. That was the next thing I was going to bring up, right? Because I think there's something to be said with the argument of you will discourage countries in reporting something if you're going to punish them for reporting it. And I mean, we saw that happen in the beginning, didn't we? We saw that 100%. China did their best to try to hide it and control it themselves, and it wasn't possible.
There's some things that are going to work. I think and when I say work, I mean slow things down a little bit, not stop it. Those are border measures. And some things that are performative, which aren't going to work, which are focused travel measures. And I mean, again, everyone's entitled to an opinion. Everyone's entitled to debate. You're going to get a lot of answers from a lot of different people. But I mean, show me when focused travel measures have worked with any infectious disease that's spread beyond those borders.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the border measures are what we should be concentrating on and what we have been concentrating on. I want to get to a couple of other things quickly before I run out of time with you. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization is set to update its guidance on booster shots today. Ontario's already gone ahead and opened up the eligibility to people over the age of 50. Do you think they should go farther and open up booster shots for everyone?
Well, when we're talking about, so for starters, that's going to be the approach. We know it. It's just a matter of how quickly do they move down how quickly do we move down the rungs on the ladder?
Right.
But that's for sure the plan, right? It's clear that this is a 3-dose vaccine for at least the vast majority of people. And, certainly there's now eligibility for the 50 plus, but we know that's going to change with time.
Yeah, and I think it's easier to coordinate in that way, right? When you break 100%. It down by demographics, whether it's, the most vulnerable in the beginning and those that, are working in the healthcare field, and then you do, age groups that are more vulnerable and you work your way down.
Instead of a free-for-all. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's pretty reasonable. I do. I think we might need to move a little faster if Omicron is shown to chip away at the immunity that we get and the protection that we get from 2 doses of a vaccine, and if 3 doses is really demonstrated to really protect better against this variant, maybe we need to move a little quicker. But I don't have a crystal ball, but if I was a betting person, and I thought, I would imagine that we're going to see this open up even further in Ontario in the next 30 days.
Personally, are you rethinking Christmas plans for yourself, and would you encourage other people to rethink their plans?
Yeah, as the token Jewish guy at the Toronto General Hospital, I work every Christmas, so
Gotcha.
I'll be on the hospital ward. I hear you, though. Yeah, you just got to be careful. We just got to be careful in this era, right? We know the vaccines are excellent, but of course they're not perfect. We know people who are vaccinated, although they're at lower risk of getting and transmitting this infection, you can still get and transmit this infection. So we got to keep a good understanding of who's going to be in the room with us, who's going to be in the house, who's around. Is there a vulnerable individual, an older individual who might be at risk of more severe infection? And, it's hard to make some blanket statements here, but I think people at least should keep their head on a swivel and see what the rates of COVID are in their area, what the risks are, who they're surrounded by, and act accordingly. There's lots of right paths. There's also lots of wrong paths, and wrong paths would be having, big indoor gatherings with no masks with tons and tons of people. You just know there's going to be cases introduced and outbreaks associated with that.
Yeah, agreed. Dr. Bogoch, thanks so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. And happy Hanukkah to you.
Oh, thanks. I think it's, night 5 or night, I think it's night 6 tonight. Happy Hanukkah to everyone who celebrated.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now. That's Dr. Isaac Bogoch, infectious disease expert and clinician investigator and associate professor with the University Health Network in Toronto. Coming up after the break, we're going to be talking a little sports. Oh, my goodness. Where do we start with the Ottawa Senators? Let's start with a win. That was good. Up 2-0, tied 2-2. 2 goals in a minute 45. Sens fans were panicking. Oh, my goodness. Here we go again. But not to worry. Josh Norris scores to make it 3-2, and they win the game. Wayne Scanlan, Senators writer for Sportsnet.ca, coming up to talk Sens right after this. Don't go anywhere. This is Derick Fage filling in on The Rob Snow Show right here on Rogers TV and City News.
This affected us big time because when, you know how we are seasoned. We have clothes for the spring, clothes for the winter. That time, lots of clothes didn't arrive on time from Europe or from here because some factory shut down. So, and this put us in an odd position. We received not all the merchandise, part of the merchandise, and people. And for us, we have to be careful, especially with the virus going on. It did affect the business, of course, like everybody else. We're not immune, and since the government helped, this did a little bit good for us too, but still affected all the sectors, especially clothing. You can see big corporation affected bad because nobody was thought it's gonna be like this. Earthquake might happen, we joke about it before, things might happen, but this was like a third war, but with a virus. So how to survive, that's the question, and we're doing our best to work with the mall, especially rent in a mall is very high. The government, they have certain, let's say, condition, like how many people will be in the mall or in the stores, etc. Yeah, it's a big factor, but of course, if my store has a back doors or just will be better, it will be much better. At least we can have curbside much easy because we have to shut down completely, and this left a mark on us, on everybody too. People always ask me, go online. Certain things you can go online, let's say t-shirt, certain product people don't know how to fit. But when it comes to clothing, it's different completely. Let's say I have a customer comes, you can give him 44, but certain suit he might take 42, certain suit he might take 46. So, and how could I mean, suit is not gonna fit the same. And I see people come back and they show me what they got online, and not the same fabric. Mostly young people, but if you really want to shop, you have to go to the store because everything will be around you. You want to be sure the color look good, the fit will look good, especially when you spend, doesn't matter how much money, whether 300 or 2,000, you know? You have to try, you have to see what's going on. Please don't be shy, contact us. It will be a pleasure for me to take a suit or coat or anything. Like sometimes people have a funeral, or they have things, they have a wedding, they don't want to come to the mall. If I get all the information, I will go and meet them at their home or their business offices. I'm gonna start doing that, you know, and this will help the business and help the people, like they're afraid to come to the mall for time being, or they're too busy at work. They cannot go anywhere at certain times, so I'm glad to do that.
Strong opinions.
Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick, Fage here from Rogers TV, filling in for Rob, and we turn our attention to sports. And your Ottawa Senators, ladies and gentlemen, a 3-2 win. I mean, outshot 49-20, but let's ignore that and just bask in the glow of a win.
Was that some kind of record, 49-20, but you got the 2 points?
It was.
It was
actually
a record.
It's the largest shots on goal differential in franchise history that ended up in a win for the Ottawa Senators.
Well, that's a footnote anyway.
We
Good
made
for
history.
Good for the CV. Look,
Yeah,
I was there then.
Absolutely. Hey, joining us to talk more Senators writer for Sportsnet.ca, Wayne Scanlan. Wayne, how are you this morning? Are you basking in the glow of this win?
Well, you remember what Al Davis used to say? Just win,
Just
baby.
win, baby. Oh, yeah.
It's only one, mind you, but I think it was an important one after what the team and the fans have been through in the last little while.
And let's talk about, you're right, because that 6-2 loss to Vancouver seemed to be the breaking point for many fans, and calling for heads in particular. Well, calling for, first of all, one of the Pierres to come out and say something instead of DJ Smith taking it on his own. But there's been a lot of questions, Wayne, in the last week about DJ Smith and his coaching staff. Do you think he's in any trouble here?
Well, I think there's a lot of people that are potentially in trouble. I mean, you just can't continue to lose forever. You can't have that kind of a downward spiral with no sign of coming out of it. It's like a pilot in an airplane that's in one of those spins. Like, you've got to be able to come out of that spin, or bad things are going to happen. And we saw it last year, very similar. Off to a terrible start. They were like 2-12-1 to start the year, and they got together in the second half to play in a way that entertained fans. They had a lot of the young prospects playing. Eric Brandstrom was playing a regular shift. Fans were happy to see that. The team was winning. Josh Norris, all these guys, Drake Batherson, were all playing really well. And now, the expectations were raised a little bit, not to the point people thought this was a playoff team necessarily.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to contend a little bit in the Atlantic Division. And especially with Montreal playing so poorly, I mean, there's opportunity there to at least leapfrog past them. And they may still do that. But it's been a very, very tough fall because, I mean, after 20 games, they had a worse record than a year ago. I don't think anybody thought that was possible.
I certainly didn't. I certainly didn't think so. And it just seems like, I was telling David, I mean, even last night, and this has been a constant, the team is having a difficult time. I mean, defensively, they can't get the pucks out of the zone. And by the way, by every means possible. This is what drove me crazy even last night. They can't get it out by passing the puck. They can't get it out by carrying the puck. And they can't even get it out by dumping it out. They've made some poor decisions on defense, but do you think part of the defensive structure that they've put in is now beginning to be the bigger part of the problem more than just the players?
Well, I think it's both.
Okay.
I really do. I think when you look at that blue line, you think about Lassie Thompson just, popping up here due to a COVID emergency and fitting in seamlessly. Either they're better down in the AHL than we thought, and the Belleville team in particular, score, some of this young talent that's in the system is actually better than the veterans that are kind of plugging holes and are holding spots until those kids are ready. But I mean, when you think about a Jake Sanderson coming up through the system, probably the best player in the NCAA right now, and probably without argument the best defenseman. And you think about him maybe joining the team as early as next spring and possibly a regular by next fall. And then, he joins a blue line of Thomas Chabot and Lassie Thompson and some of these other, Jacob Bernard Docker and even Tyler Clavin, who's down at, the University of North Dakota, which we call the Senators Farm System. They're a college farm team. But, the future is brighter there, and I don't think you're going to have these coverage issues and these breakout issues when you have, just a better blue line. And I think we knew going in that the Senators were a little bit questionable in goal, a little bit questionable on the blue line, and they've got some real promise at forward. But would they score enough to overcome the defensive liabilities? And as we're seeing right now, they can't.
Yeah, and Wayne, I may be one of those fans that needs an intervention because David was making fun of me earlier today. I was talking about North Dakota and the great system they have down there, and he's like, "You're actually watching North Dakota hockey right now?" I said, "More than that, I'm looking at the top 5 prospects of the next draft." I mean, that's where a lot of fans find ourselves, and it's not going to be a bad thing if they end up in the top 5. It's not something that we certainly want, but the top 5, prospect, even the top 10 look quite good. So, I mean, we have that to look forward to. But I want to get back to Dorion and Maguire because we haven't heard from either of them. And Pierre Maguire, when he was hired, he basically said, I'm used to being in the media and in front of the media and in front of the microphone, and I'll be doing more of that and a lot of that. Where are they, Wayne, and why haven't we heard from them?
Why do you ask me all the hard questions?
Because it's easy for me. I'm just a host in the radio show. I get to throw the questions out.
Exactly. And you know what? I think we're all asking ourselves that question because, I was on that Zoom call with Pierre. I was on vacation and had to try to get some Wi-Fi to listen to Pierre Maguire, who's suddenly this, senior vice president of player development. But they talked about it at that time that he would be a little bit of a go-between and someone that could do some of the publicity stuff. Let's face it, he would be great at it. One would think with his broadcasting career and his ability to speak, and he can sell. He could sell a message and talk about the prospects and get everybody excited. So I really don't know what's happened there. It's almost like if Pierre Dorion's not talking, he doesn't want anybody talking. This club, as a reporter, I can tell you they have a history of not allowing assistant coaches to speak. It's very rare to get an associate coach or an assistant coach on the record on something because it's generally you go through the head coach. But, this year, it's just beyond the pale as the head coach is answering to everything, including, general manager decisions about player personnel and player acquisitions. And, I would say that my history with the team and with Pierre Dorion, he tends to wait when there's a crisis going on. Brian Murray, I thought, was really good at kind of nipping it in the bud and getting out front of it. I find Dorion likes to wait till the corner is turned a little bit, and then it's not so horrible. But they go on a little bit of a winning streak, and things are fans are off the ledge and all that kind of stuff. That's when he tends to come out and stick his head out and say, "Look, I told you we weren't as bad as we were playing. We're a little bit better. We still have some work to do. Blah blah blah. This is where we need to shore up." So that's all I can tell you is that my history with him is that he tends to wait for things to get a little bit better and then comes out and is pretty good when he is accessible, but it's not very often.
Another question, just going back to the Pierre Dorion and DJ Smith, you've got an owner that doesn't like to spend money. You've just signed these two contract extensions. And regardless of how poor this team plays and where they end up at the end of the season, let's say they end up in last place 3/4 of the way through the season or at the end of the season, is it even realistic that Eugene Melnick is going to eat one or both of these contracts?
Well, it's possible that they could do, use the buyout. They've used it before. They did it with Bobby Ryan, Dion Phaneuf. That certainly is an avenue. You still save money, in the big picture. But where this goes, if this is the last play, they just extended both the GM and the head coach. So, to your earlier question of are they safe? You think they're safe, but you just never know in pro sports. And, lots of rumors about is Melnick going to sell the team? I just don't see anything in the offing right now as far as the team being sold, and certainly nothing in the offing about letting go a general manager, a head coach. But I think anything will be on the table if things get worse than they are right now.
Yeah. Wayne, always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure, Derek.
All right, take care. That's Wayne Scanlan, Senators writer for Sportsnet.ca. Coming up after the break, you know what it is. It's the Friday free-for-all on the Talkback Hour. Loyal listeners to the show, you already know how this works. But if you're new around here, I'll explain, okay? Every Friday, we open up the phone lines to you, and we don't set the topics. You set the topics. It's Friday. It's been a long week. David's grumpy. He's trying to get out of the week. We're tired of working. So we're leaving it up to you. 613-750-1310. Anything you want to talk about? Well, just about anything. You got to be careful. Show a little respect, okay, for your fellow listener. We usually stick to talking about things that are in the news, but that's not the hard and fast rule. The key here is that we want to hear your opinion. So coming up after the break, I'll certainly share some things we can talk about. But maybe you want to talk about Omicron, the new variant. We just heard from Wayne Scanlan. We talked about the Senators. It's depressing, but we should gather together, talk about these things. Don't suffer in silence. Call the Rob Snow Show, 750-1310. We can talk about, yesterday's topic was quite popular. Group of teenagers suing the government for the right to vote at age 16 and 17. If you didn't get a chance to weigh in on that, what do you think about that? And LeBreton Flats, another hot topic, which, I'll reference Kelly Egan's article in the Ottawa Sun today, a fantastic article by Kelly Egan, uses his amazing wit. So we can talk about LeBreton Flats again as well if you have any ideas. What do you think the NCC should be doing? Again, 750-1310. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow here on Rogers TV and City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, December 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, feeling like minus 12 in the wind. In Ottawa, it's minus 6, minus 5 in Smiths Falls. And here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. A major jump in the number of new employees last month across Canada reflected in the markets. With the details, here's City News Senior Business Editor Mike Eppel.
Well, markets are off to a good start here. We've got the TSX up by 70 points, and the Dow is up 145. Positive reaction to all of the jobs data in this morning. The Canadian economy outperforming with 153,700 jobs added last month. Unemployment rate coming down to 6%. Stateside, 210,000 jobs added. Unemployment rate there down to 4.2%.
Now, as mentioned, the Canadian unemployment rate dropped to 6% even. Locally, Ottawa's unemployment rate dropped almost a full percentage point, now at 4.6%. In Gatineau, they had a slight drop, and they're now at 3.7%. City News Time 10:02. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Well, the wind will settle down. Most areas will have plenty of sunshine today. The high just minus 4, minus 10 for the low, mainly cloudy tonight. And for the weekend, varying amounts of sun and cloud for Saturday. Could see some accumulating snow, though. The high minus 2, and then periods of snow on Sunday. Could see significant snowfall as well. High just minus 3. For today, the high minus 4.
And right now it feels like minus 12 in the wind, but it's minus 6 in Ottawa, minus 5 in Smiths Falls. The National Advisory Committee on Immunization acting on an urgent request from the federal government to set the update their guidance on COVID-19 vaccine booster shots. The government asked for new advice as it looks to counter the threat of the Omicron variant. Some advice already given, though, from the British medical journal Lancet. It says booster shots do increase immune response. Dr. Isaac Bogoch tells Derick Fage on the Rob Snow Show there is a best choice for a third, according to this study.
It looks like the mRNA vaccines are probably the best for using as a third dose. Right. Just because you tend to mount a more robust immune response with those. But like for people who took 2 doses of AstraZeneca, great, go get a Moderna or a Pfizer for your third dose. You'll be in great shape.
Now, Dr. Bogoch says any vaccine you get is worth it, including the Johnson & Johnson single shot, which he says reduces the risk of getting the virus and reduces the severity of the virus if you do get an infection. City News Time 10:03. Montreal police say a 20-year-old man has died following a shooting in the city's East End last night. Officers were called and several 911 calls for gunshots about 7:15. Police found a victim in his vehicle with a gunshot wound to the upper body and was taken to hospital where he died earlier this morning. A 17-year-old boy located nearby also suffering a gunshot wound. He was taken to hospital. Authorities are not fearing for his life. Montreal police say he's cooperating with investigators and technicians are combing the area where the shooting took place. The Office of the Michigan Prosecutor says she will announce a charging decision today. This involves the parents of a boy accused of killing 4 students at Oxford High School. Oakland County prosecutors said today the parents' actions went far beyond negligence. The suspect is 15 years old. He's been charged as an adult with a couple of dozen crimes, including murder and attempted murder. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back.
On the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
You heard the lady. Call now. That's the number, 613-750-1310. Derick Fage here, host of Daytime Ottawa and Rogers TV, filling in for Rob today. Rob will be back on Monday. It is the Friday free-for-all on the Talkback Hour. You know what that means. Every Friday we open up the phone lines to you, the good listener. We don't set the topics, you set the topics. And I'm serious, we've actually done no prep. Absolutely no prep for this entire hour, David or I.
Yeah,
nothing.
We have nothing prepared.
We got
so
nothing
you
prepared.
Call.
Yeah, if you don't call, we're just going to have to talk in circles with our own opinions. Not that they aren't great opinions. Don't get me wrong. I mean, even if nobody calls, you should sit in your car, at home, wherever you are. Maybe you're soaking in the tub. You should sit here for the next hour. Well, really the next 2 hours, because we have some amazing content coming up in the 11 o'clock hour as well. But for the next hour, David and I can talk about anything for a long, long time. It's just not as fun. Not as fun. Maybe you want to talk about the new COVID variant. David's very worried about it. If you didn't listen earlier, David is very concerned, and for good reason. Just looking at numbers, by the way, as far as coronavirus, COVID-19 vaccinations, we are now 54.8% of the world's population has received at least one dose. This is according to ourworldindata.org, which is a very reliable source. Only 6.2% of people in low-income countries have received at least one dose. We talked about travel earlier. Are you changing your travel plans, or maybe you're not? Maybe you're comfortable traveling. Let us know. We could talk a little Ottawa Senators. We just talked to Wayne Scanlan about that. Ottawa coming up with a win last night. I mean, a win is a win.
Are you losing faith in the team at all, dear listener? Are you having trouble watching the games? I'm having trouble watching the games these days.
I am, because I will say this, that last year I had a lot of excitement, and this is even before they went on that streak to end the season, and it gave many of us a little bit of hope, right? The young guys got started playing. They traded some of the veterans that weren't playing very well. They seem to have made the same mistake again this year with bringing in veterans or keeping veterans that don't necessarily deserve a spot on this team. But even last year, right, there's new players, it's a young team. You saw this great camaraderie with the players as well. You had Stutzla and Tkachuk and Norris. They were living together. They were laughing. They were having fun. I don't see as much of that. They were certainly more competitive. There are things that are, the COVID-19 situation on the team certainly set them back. Certainly injuries, right? Colin White and Shane Pinto. You couldn't have foreseen that situation happening either. I mean, as much as Colin White has underachieved, I think we could kind of use him right now at the center position. Shane Pinto was obviously a difficult one. And David, I know you like this topic. The group of teenagers that are suing the government for the right to vote at age 16 and 17.
That was a hot one yesterday. If you were one of the people we left hanging there, give us a call back. We can boot that one around some more.
We can also talk LeBreton Flats. That was a big talker yesterday. We asked people, hey, call in with your ideas. We got some wonderful ideas. The Botanical Garden, I think, ended up to be our favorite idea yesterday.
Ottawa's very own biodome. That could be what's at LeBreton Flats.
A biodome type of thing. That for those of you that have traveled to Montreal, paid a little visit to Montreal, incredibly popular. The biodome.
Kelly Egan, great column in The Citizen this morning.
Amazing.
I don't know if you read that one.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic
Kelly
column.
doesn't miss often, and he's taken the NCC to task. If you've got your Citizen handy, I would read Kelly Egan this morning.
Agreed. Let me just read something, because this is something I didn't discuss yesterday. We didn't have a chance to discuss when it comes to LeBreton Flats and the NCC in particular. This is from Kelly Egan's article today, and I thought it was brilliant because it's one of those ideas that you say to yourself, geez, I should have thought of that first. Aside from, from Kelly Egan's article today. Aside from terrible timing, the NCC has this habit of table turning with the public. Which of us is the main federal planner in the capital? Oh, sorry, we have to do that too? Where are the NCC ideas? Is that not more or less what they do all day? Are you not able to throw out a bunch of possibilities, things that have worked in other northern cities, visions we might love? Right? I mean, he's right. And the other thing, I'm going to look right into the camera for those of you watching on Rogers TV. The other thing he mentioned is that we already shared hundreds of ideas. Do you not still have the hundreds of ideas on file that you could, again, bring up to the public? Here were some other ideas, and maybe get some public opinion on that. And let's be honest about the whole public opinion thing, because we talked about this yesterday. The idea of asking public opinion, but then they put in the caveat of, oh, and by the way, if you have an idea, you have to have the skills and the means to follow through with your idea with a team of investors that have enough money to finance your idea. So David and I, we can throw out our ideas. You can throw out your ideas, but do we have the means, either with the skills or the financial backing, to make these ideas a reality? Most likely not. So maybe you want to talk about that. And another thing that Kelly Egan brings up in this article is, why not do something temporary, right? We're probably 3 to 5 years away from doing anything. It's a huge parcel of land in Centertown. So why don't we do pop-ups? Why don't we put a couple of skating rinks and ask some very wealthy local companies to sponsor a couple of skating rinks, right? Turn it into this Norwegian winter festival of sorts, right? I don't know if you've ever been to the Governor General's in the winter, but they have this huge weekend festival that they put on. You can try out all these different things, and there's a real Norwegian feel to it. Other countries, sort of northern countries, they participate and show you some of the wonderful things that they're doing to celebrate the winter instead of being miserable all winter. Why don't we do that? And then in the summer, Kelly Egan comes up with some other great, why not some food trucks, right? Roll in some food trucks. Pop-up markets, quickie band shell, bicycle station, juice bar, chainsaw jugglers, which he mentions a few times, which I think is quite funny. A frisbee field, a quick skateboard park, a splash pad, something. Let's do something temporarily. Okay. Let's go to the phone. So those are some topics. We have Brian from Carleton wants to talk travel testing. Brian, what are your thoughts on the travel testing that's happening?
Well, it reminds me of Animal House and Double Secret Probation. I mean,
great movie. Oh, excellent reference, by the way.
Here we are. We've already got to be tested 72 hours before we leave. And by the way, I'm going on a vacation, and then we get it with this. So, and then you've got to be tested again when you hit the country. One of these tests is superfluous. And
in what manner? In what manner, Brian?
Well, okay. You either do one or the other. I mean, with the incubation period, one of them doesn't matter.
Yeah, right? I can see that argument. Yeah, people have made that argument. Yeah.
And it's also been done on the back of an envelope. There is absolutely no thought that went into this other than the PMO getting Trudeau to come out. We're keeping you safe. No, that's not true. Because the airport authorities have now said, we don't have the staff, we don't have the place to do it. And what you're going to do is get all these people in a confined area getting a test. It's just going to spread the stuff.
No, that's an interesting take, because we've even seen that, at pharmacies, people were complaining.
I used to work at Health Canada.
Okay.
And I always got the flu. Because what Health Canada did in their infinite wisdom was to wait till late in the season, and then they would get everybody into this large room where there's sneezing and coughing going on, and you'd get your shot.
Right.
Okay? Well, when I stopped that, I stopped getting sick. So there's a classic example of nobody thought about this. The airports don't know what to do. They're scrambling. And the government is now caught with its pants down trying to say, oh, God.
Well, and I'm on the government's travel website right now, which Elliot Finkelman, travel expert, shared with us earlier in the show that you should go there. Well, you almost have to go there to see. And it's a couple of pages. I mean, if you wanna travel somewhere, you better do your homework. So where are you traveling to, Brian?
Well, I planned this, my wife and I. Now she's getting cold feet.
Okay.
Mexico. Mexico has zero. No.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you're Canadian, right? They're basically saying, if you're Canadian, unvaccinated or vaccinated, we don't care. Come, we need your tourism dollars.
Well, that's right. And, I would not travel if I wasn't vaccinated.
Right.
So that's my attitude, and I think it's a lot of people's attitude.
Well, people want to get back to normal, and for those that are fortunate enough to be able to travel, and I'm one of those people. I mean, I I can't wait either. I'm not going to say I'm not going to travel yet. I'll be honest with you, Brian, but it is something that I'm desperate to do. Brian, thanks so much for your call. Really appreciate it. All right, we got a couple of lines open. We have a couple of people who want to talk about changing the age eligibility to vote. There are 13 teenagers who are taking this to the highest court. They want to change the voting eligibility age to the ages to include the ages of 16 and 17. So we have a couple of people on that, but we have a couple of lines open at 750-1310. We'll be back to talk to you, and any topic goes. This is the Friday Free for All. Again, 750-1310. You're listening to the Rob Snow Show. I'm Derick Fage here on Rogers TV and City News.
Opening a business especially in a pandemic, in that kind of situation, is very challenging. First, people don't know me, people don't know my product. To build a new clientele, to build a trust for them, to show them that I care about it. I do love my food. That was the biggest challenge. And of course, in all lockdown, we had to face it regards my employee, girls, ladies, what they work for me. I didn't want to tell them, sorry, I'm closed, I'm not having a job for you. No, they have a families, they have kids to feed. So this is very important because we are family orientated. And we decided to open. We, of course, essential business. So been very tough, very, very tough, as we didn't see people on the road. Market was completely quiet, but we knew it that we have to wait, and we knew it that we're gonna be fine. In this town, we built online shop, Vedel Online, and we did Uber Eats, which one is picking up and is very, very popular. We have a really good feedback. So this is the song for my heart. And and we try to expand. I'm thinking about opening another location. So I want to make Vedel famous. I want to make the Vedel place to be for all the families with kids. Try the traditional food, what their grandparents cooked in the countries when they're from, or even Canadian people. They're more than welcome to come and try our famous pierogis. I try to be passionate about my food, organic food made with love, with all homemade, organic. So you can find food from all over the Europe: Polish, German, Ukrainian, Romanian, French, Armenian. So all kind of different types of food. Homemade lunches. We focus on the homemade lunches, grandma style. I keep always saying, like in my Genia Babcia house, how she cooked. I wanted this love and this food over here because I believe that will bring all people around me. And all the organic cold cuts, lovely selection of sausages, cheeses, European cheeses, great selections of mustards, French cookies. All what you need from Europe you can find here at the Vedel Touch of Europe. If you think good way, that's it. You have to. I had the option to cry in the corner and say, oh, pandemic is coming. No, you need to stand up and fight for it and have your eyes open, think outside of the box and do it.
Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, the Rob Snow Show continues.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here, filling in for Rob this last few days. We're going to go to some callers in just a moment. I just want to set this up quickly for everybody because we're talking about teenage voting here. So just to give you some background, if you weren't listening yesterday, if you haven't seen this news piece, a group of young Canadians has launched a court challenge to lower Canada's minimum age for voting in federal elections. On Tuesday, 13 young people from across the country, ranging in age from 12 to 18, filed an application at the Ontario Superior Court of Justice, arguing that the section of the Canada Elections Act, which bars Canadians under 18 from voting in federal elections, is unconstitutional. The group is making the argument that the rule violates two sections of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Section 3, which states that every citizen of Canada has the right to vote, and Section 15, which states that every individual is equal before and under the law. So we got a lot of responses yesterday. People want to continue to talk about that today, so we head over to Barry from Ottawa. Barry, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, good day, Derick.
Good day.
Yeah, I just, my very first thought when I heard that this week was that I wondered what weed charity benefit the PMO went to gather all these teenagers together to go to court and challenge this.
Well played, Barry, well played.
Well, I think that obviously there's a reflection on Trudeau paying all these 14 and 15-year-olds the CERB payments of $2,000 a month.
Well, I'm not sure 14 and 15-year-olds qualified for CERB, but I understand what you're trying to say.
Well, I heard that they were paying it to 14 and 15-year-olds
okay.
who never had a job and stuff like that.
It was just 15-year-olds, Barry. Just 15-year-olds.
Just 15. Okay.
Well, it's just typical that more payoffs to get votes, just like the print media, the way they paid off the newspapers to get them to be one-sided and only talk about the Liberals. And no, I don't think it's going to be a good thing. I don't think that teenagers should have the vote.
Okay.
I also wanted to mention that if Trudeau and the Liberals want members of Parliament in the House of Commons to operate from home, then I don't think they deserve their expense accounts if they're just going to be sitting at home and doing their parliamentary.
Well, you'd have. I mean, for an expense account, you have to submit invoices, right? So if they're not traveling, they wouldn't submit the invoices.
If
right?
they're not traveling and if they're not renting an apartment or a hotel room here in Ottawa to attend the House of Commons, then I don't think they should have an expense account just to order dinner and have it delivered at home.
Should be good. Some good savings there, Barry. Thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. Let's head over to Paul from the Byward Market. Paul, what are your thoughts on teenagers voting in the age group of 16 and 17, lowering this?
Good morning, Derick.
Good morning.
I mulled it over yesterday between the pros and cons.
Okay.
And there was a lot of callers that had really good thoughts that I hadn't even, it
considered.
hadn't crossed my mind. And
same here.
You had the same reaction on some of them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And one of them that sticks to me is, at the age of 16, you're allowed to work in Canada.
Right.
If you're paying taxes, you should have a right to say what the government does with your money.
Yeah, I thought that, you know what, I tend to lean towards that one. Honestly, I mean, if you are going to, David brought up some good points as well. Maybe you need to have. It's all well and good. I love with these young people that they're having these conversations and so forth, and that's great. But why not just have those conversations and wait and mature and find out. And find out more about the political process and find out more. What is the rush? Is what I wonder.
Yes, but if these were your children, it's you give what you want the most in life is the best for your kid.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you have one that's really going up there, and you've got one that's unfortunately not doing so well and whatnot, you've got to give them every opportunity they have. And no, I say if you're paying taxes, you have a right. You have a right to say.
I know. I appreciate the opinion. Thanks so much for calling, Paul. Really appreciate it. Let's head over to David in Ottawa South. We'll stay on this subject of teenagers voting in the 16, 17-year-old age group. What do you think, David?
Yeah. Okay. I've got a couple of opinions. First of all, talking about the age, I mean, there may be some 16-year-olds who are aware enough and astute enough to have a legitimate opinion and that's worth a vote. But there may be some 25-year-olds who don't have a freaking clue.
No, yeah, listen, that argument was made yesterday as well, David, for sure.
Yeah, but
I mean, I don't think we can't necessarily, test you before you go out and vote.
No, and they're going to court saying that every Canadian has a right to vote. Every Canadian? What about a 5-year-old?
Well, and then that's the other, because these two sections of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms is basically saying exactly what you just said. Well, then everyone has the right to vote. Doesn't matter what your age is.
Everyone, isn't it? So, they have to draw a line somewhere. They draw a line where you can drive or where you can't, where you can register for a firearm or where you can't, where you can get married without parents' permission or when you can't. These lines are drawn for reasons. And it's not a matter of discrimination or violation of charter or anything.
No, I agree, David. I think you do have to draw the line, and I think 18 is reasonable, but thanks for the call, by the way, David. I will say that, we're not the only ones who are having this conversation. There are 20 countries, and we talked about this yesterday, according to iPolitics. They say that 20 countries have the voting age of 16 and 17, and they're reputable, news sites. So, David and I talked about it yesterday. We're not disputing it. Argentina, Austria, I believe, Bosnia we mentioned yesterday. I think Scotland was in there, Ecuador, Cuba, places like that. So, it is happening in other places around the world. Let's head over to Sarah from Renfrew, who wants to talk about the border restrictions. Sarah, what are your thoughts on these border restrictions?
So basically just touching on what the doctor was saying earlier.
Okay.
Doing the restrictive as far as picking specific countries to block travel from, that's not going to do anything. That's just a Band-Aid effect. It's already here. There's already a couple, there's 2 cases in Ottawa. So blocking that won't do anything. They have to do a global effect where the requirement for the testing and then you quarantine until it's a negative test. That will at least help the situation. And then it's not being discriminative against any other places. And then it also, again, like he mentioned, encourages other countries to come forward with that information so that they don't fear the being blocked.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sarah. I certainly have had my opinion changed about that. I mean, going back, I would say, to last year when we had the situation where we had the variant coming out of India and Pakistan and, should we shut our borders and so forth? And at that time I said, we should not just shut our borders to those 2 countries. We should shut our borders to every country. However, Dr. Bogoch made some very for some excellent arguments, right? That's not necessarily going to work as long as you have the testing requirements and the quarantine requirements in place, both here and abroad. That is probably the best way to tackle this situation. Sarah, thanks so much for your call. I'm going to take a break here, but want to let you know we do have a line available at the moment. That is 613-750-1310. Again, this is your day. It's the Friday free-for-all on the Talkback Hour. We can talk about anything. We didn't really prepare much. We threw out a couple of things. You want to talk about these restrictions, the age voting being lowered to include 16 and 17-year-olds? Do you want to talk the Ottawa Senators? Do you want to talk LeBreton Flats, which has been a hot topic this week? We'll take it. 613-750-1310. Derick, Fage here, filling in on the Rob Snow Show here on Rogers TV and City News.
one for local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, December 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, feeling like minus 12. It's minus 6 in Ottawa, minus 5 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. Over 1,000 cases. Ontario reporting 1,031 new COVID cases today, along with 4 more deaths. 2.9% of the almost 40,000 tests came back positive. That includes 58 more cases in Ottawa, 15 in Eastern Ontario, 12 in Renfrew County, 6 more COVID cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. National Advisory Committee on Immunization acting on an urgent request from the federal government, set to update the new guidance on COVID-19 vaccine booster shots. The government asked for new advice as it looks to counter the threat of the Omicron variant. Many provinces aren't waiting, like Ontario, going ahead with their own booster shot strategy. In Ontario, a week from this Monday, those 50 and older can register for their third dose. Canadian unemployment rate dropped to 6% even compared with the United States at 4.2%. 154,000 jobs were added in Canada in November. Locally, Ottawa's unemployment rate dropped almost a full percentage point, now at 4.6. Gatineau also had a slight drop. They are now 3.7% unemployed in that region. City News Time, 10:33. I'm Andrew Boyle. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
It's time to talk back
on the Rob Snow Show.
Have your say and call now.
613-750-1310.
Derick, Fage here, filling in for Rob Snow. One line available, by the way, 613-750-1310. Friday free-for-all. Anything goes. But people want to talk about allowing 16 and 17-year-olds to vote or not. And LeBreton Flats, let's head straight to the phones and speak to Pat from Manotick. Pat, what are your thoughts on this group of Canadians that have launched a young group ranging from the ages of 12 to 18 who have launched a court challenge to lower Canada's minimum age for voting in federal elections? What do you think?
Well, everybody has a voice. But at the same time, there's a reason why we have graduated driving licenses from them to grow up and mature, so they're mature enough to drive. And as far as the students go, working-wise and being able to vote, they get all their tax money back.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're making under a certain amount, and of course, let's be honest, most young people in that age range certainly are, right? Because they're working very, very part-time, minimal hours.
And if they're going to school, they get their taxes back at the end of the year. But are they mature enough to understand, like, how many, like, we were all 17 and 18 or 17 and 16 at one time.
Right.
How much news did we watch and how much did we understand about the world at the age of 16 or 17?
Well, even if you can convince me, Pat, that you're at the age of 16 and 17, that you do follow the news, that maybe you do. Maybe there's, maybe there's a percentage of young people that do. That doesn't necessarily give you the right to vote. I mean, we have to draw the line somewhere.
That's right. But the majority of the percentage, now I'm not saying any statistics, but how many of the 16 and 17-year-olds actually sit down and watch the news and understand it?
Yeah, I mean, there's I'm sure there's a lot of families out there that have those dinner conversations, and their kids are well informed on what's happening in their country, in their city, global issues and that kind of thing. But I know other countries are doing it. I'm just not sure I'm on board. I appreciate listening to people's opinions, and we've had differing opinions on it, and maybe my mind will change. But at this time, I think a wait and see until the age of 18. There's nothing wrong with that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that either. I think that's the way it is. I mean, you can't drink until you're 19. Graduate driver's licenses, you're 16, you're actually 18 or 19 before you actually get your G. So,
it's some excellent points. Pat, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. All right, we'll move on to, this is a popular topic the last couple of days. Let's move on to Cam in Blackburn Hamlet. Cam, how are you this morning?
I'm just great this morning. But excellent. Are you saying that the 12-year-olds want to vote?
Well, no, they're asking. So there's 13 young people from across the country. They do range in age from 12 to 18. So they filed an application at the Ontario Court of Justice arguing that the section of the Canada Elections Act which bars Canadians under 18 from voting in federal elections is unconstitutional. So they're not. Yes, I mean the wording of that sounds like they're trying to open it up to anybody under the age of 18. But I don't think that's the case. From what we've read, is they're asking for that 16 and up. So 16 and 17. To be allowed to vote. But
I have to say that, being able to have that privilege to vote,
yes,
you should also have the privilege to be told, I don't want to look after you. You're an adult now. You're capable to vote. I want you to get out of the house and work. I want you to pay rent.
I don't think I go that far, Cam.
What I'm saying is, it's a can of worms. If you think that you have the right to vote, then you have the right to face adult-type responsibility.
Well, many people brought that up yesterday, right? What about being tried as an adult then?
Absolutely.
At the ages of 16 and 17. I would love to see a sit down with these young people and just go through some of the things like that. Okay, if that's what you'd like.
Yeah.
Well, would you also be in favor of trying trying a 16 or 17-year-old as an adult, no matter what the crime is?
Absolutely. If you have the brains to vote, you have the brains to go to jail.
Yeah, for sure, Cam. Great point. Really appreciate the call. Let's continue on this topic and head over to Mark in Ottawa. Mark, what do you think about this?
Well, Derick, you just made the point that I wanted to make, and
okay.
I heard you. I wouldn't have called in because it would be redundant.
That's okay.
I would not be in favor of extending adult abilities, responsibilities, political duties to people 16 years of age unless the Young Offenders Act was revised to attribute adult criminal responsibility to people 16 years of age.
Well, that's interesting, Mark. So you're saying that if they did change the law as far as being able to try 16 and 17-year-olds as adults, you would welcome them being able to vote?
I would be less opposed to it.
Okay.
You see, it bothers me that at the age of 16, we judge a person old enough to operate a powerful device called a motor vehicle.
Right.
Yet if that person drives that motor vehicle over to his high school, waits in the parking lot for the teacher to come out who flunked him, or the boy who stole his girlfriend, and runs over that person and kills them, we do not consider this 16-year-old old enough to be fully responsible for the crime he has just committed.
Yeah, and I believe it would be a maximum of a 10-year sentence. So if you're tried as an adult, of course, there's a maximum of 25 years for first degree with no parole. But as a 16 or 17-year-old or anyone under the age of 18, that first-degree murder charge would turn into a maximum of 10 years.
But somehow you're considered old enough to operate a motor vehicle, to be trusted to do it safely. But then when you use it to commit a homicide, you're not responsible enough to answer fully for the deed you've just done.
Many people's argument for sure, Mark. Mark, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. Let's change our focus for a moment. We do have a couple of other callers, by the way, calling in on this particular topic. We do have a line available, 613-750-1310. But Irving from Orleans wants to talk about LeBreton Flats. Irving, what do you think about this LeBreton Flats, and do you have any opinions on what you'd like to see there?
How about a modern incinerator? And the reason is,
okay,
it would handle Ottawa's garbage and Gatineau's garbage, which is the NCC mandate.
All centrally located,
right,
at LeBreton Flats.
Right, and besides that, you can even have garbage rail, because we could put the tracks by there.
Right.
So,
yeah, I don't know if I want it in that kind of central area.
By the
way, to be selfish about it, Irving, I really would like to see something that is a gathering place.
Why? Why do you want a gathering place when we got the Parliament Hill, we got parks, And besides that, we haven't got an incinerator. And the other
I'm not against the incinerator, Irving. I think that's where we need to go. I just don't think I want it at that particular spot in the city.
By the way, part of it's a floodplain.
Part of the Le Breton Flats is a floodplain. Yeah, you're not wrong there. That is true.
So you can't use about a third of it. So.
We make bad decisions all the time when it comes to infrastructure, Irving.
Yeah,
so,
but I mean,
it'll be used.
Yeah, but everybody complains about garbage heaps. We got mountains of garbage.
Yeah.
So why not an incinerator for Gatineau and Ottawa in a central location where there's bridges, there's track?
Okay. No, I hear you. Thanks for the call, Irving. Appreciate it. This topic of teenagers voting, age 16 and 17, it's another big one today. Let me just give you a little bit more of context on this. By the way, one of the teens in the group actually lives in Ottawa. Her name is Zoe Purvis. She's a high school student at Glebe Collegiate, and she's quoted in the Ottawa Citizen in an article a couple of days ago why she's joined the group looking to start a court challenge of the Elections Act. And here's what she had to say. I'm in this city where politics are so important. Everyone is talking about politics, including my friends, but none of us can really take action on it. And then she goes on to say, as much as we protest and as much as we get involved, none of us have any say when it comes to elections. That's really concerning for me. Purvis says young people hold strong views on education, the environment, and social reform that should form part of the national discourse. Listen, compelling ideas for sure. But does that necessarily mean you should get the right to vote just because you're talking about it with your peers, right? The one thing missing in there is fiscal responsibility. I see education she wants to talk about. I see the environment she wants to talk about. I see social reform. I see no fiscal responsibility. Just putting it out there. Let's continue to talk on this topic. Who have we got next? Francine from Ottawa East. Francine, how is it out there in Ottawa East today?
Oh, not too bad.
Nice.
Well, a little chilly there, don't you think?
Oh, yeah, it's starting to get there. It's inevitable.
A little crazy. Speaking of the environment, we're going up and down with the environment there.
Yeah.
My daughter's 18.
Yeah, okay.
And she started working when she was 16.
Right.
Well, she just graduated high school. She's now at University of Toronto.
Okay.
Anyway, she got her license quite early. She listens to politics like Mommy. Mommy, I always have the 1310 in the background, and she really pays attention.
That's a good mom right there. That's a good mom.
Pardon me?
I said you're a good mom, Francine.
Well, I try to be, and I try to keep her up to date with everything. But, sometimes I don't even have to. Like, all the things that Trudeau has done. Like, definitely, she just turned 18, by the way, after the election. So she was a little upset about that because she would have liked to have voted. And she definitely wouldn't have voted for Trudeau. She thinks he's a donkey.
Well, thanks for saying it politely.
Pardon me?
Thanks for saying it politely. We appreciate that. No,
yeah,
but so, Francine...
I listen to a lot of her teenage friends, and a lot of them are into politics, and I don't see why not. I think, going below 16, that's a little too much. But as of 16 and up, I think they have the right. If they can go out and work, they work part-time, they got their driver's license, they work part-time, they pay taxes like everybody else.
Okay.
They should be able to.
Now, would you look at your daughter and perhaps her circle of friends sort of being the exception to the rule of young people that closely follow politics and the issues of the day, or do you think it's broader?
I think there could be a good 30-40% of kids.
Okay.
There's a good percentage of the population, the adult population, that don't even bother vote.
Absolutely.
I hear so many people. One thing I say is that if you're going to complain about things and you don't go and vote, you have no right to complain. You get what you get. And
I agree with that, Francine, 100%.
There's my family that don't go and vote, and it kind of ticks me off.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Same position here.
We get Trudeau as a liberal, but again, it turned out to be a minority. Thank goodness. I would have preferred him out, but
yeah, that was worth it, eh?
Waste of money.
Oh, boy. Francine, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. All right, we've got one line open. Give us a call, 613-750-1310. We're going to take a break. We'll be back talking about this particular topic and LeBreton Flats. This is Derick Fage from Rogers TV filling in on The Rob Snow Show here on Rogers TV and City News.
So the birth of absinthe was 2002, I think, 2003, and I was working at Urban Bistro, happily, where Allium is now. And then the space where Holland Cafe was came up. It's on the corner of Spencer and Holland. And I spoke to the landlord, and there's a lot of interest from a lot of other people, but he and I just, got along super well, and he put a lot of faith in me. So Carmen Turner is his name. He gave me the lease to the place and really pretty much gave me all the equipment in the place. I was really lucky. I've been really lucky with landlords that way, actually, both my current landlord and Carmen Turner. Because if there hadn't been Carmen Turner, there wouldn't have been absinthe. So we were there for a few years and just sort of outgrew the place. And then now we're here. It's obviously been tough, and it's been tough for everyone. I mean, that's the been the big democratic sweep of in restaurants and the hospitality and the arts that we were talking about earlier. It's like everybody's been impacted pretty much the same. From everybody that I talked to, we're down 80%. We're climbing out now. I think one of the saddest things is we went down to 2 employees from 25. And we're now at 4, and we're bringing 2 new people on this week, so we'll be at 6. So it's little steps. So it's been tough. It's I've got the most expensive clubhouse ever here, because some days you come and you don't do any business, but you're here. But I'm grateful for what I do have. I think everybody's optimistic now, not necessarily just about the vaccine, but about the vaccine, spring, being able to be outside. I think you're going to see a lot of pop-up things happen in parking lots and on sidewalks and like that, rather than being actually inside somebody's commerce. I think we'd like to take it outside. I know my staff would. My staff like the outdoors now, all of a sudden, all 4 of us. 6 soon. We'll be doing some business in the patio in the parking lot, and we have a patio out front. And I think I hope other restaurants and stores will do the same. I hope that they take advantage of the sidewalk and doing sort of, guerrilla marketing and stuff like that, and really shaking it up a bit. You can find us at Absinthe Cafe at 1208 Wellington Street West in Hintonburg. And you can find us online at absinthecafe.ca.
On The Rob Snow Show. The phone lines are open at 613-750-1310.
Now, The Rob Snow Show continues.
Welcome back to The Rob Snow Show. Derick Fage here from Rogers TV filling in for Rob, and our lines are jam-packed. Jam-packed, so I'm going to jump right in. Take our next caller. Let's go to Ed in Ottawa, who wants to talk about this idea of opening up the eligibility to vote to the ages of 16 and 17. What do you think, Ed?
I think it's wrong. I don't agree with it.
Okay.
For one, people keep saying that teens pay tax.
Yeah.
Teens, I don't know how many teens pay tax, because you can make $12,000 a year, and you don't even have to file.
Yeah, I mean, this is the issue. Yes, do teens get part-time jobs and so forth? Absolutely. Do some teens drop out of high school and get full-time jobs? But yeah, for sure. But let's be realistic and talk about the majority of this age group, 16 and 17. They're working part-time, and yeah, for the most part, they're not paying much, if anything at all.
Yeah, and then also, the other point is that I have is that nothing will get done if that voice is voted in, because they're against everything. They're against farmers. I've spoken to some down at protests, and they want to get rid of cattle farms. They want to get rid of dairy cattle. They want to get rid of everything because they're against it. They want to go vegan, and they're against oil, mind you, and natural gas. Mind you, we live in a northern climate. What do we heat our houses with?
Well, I mean, Ed, I have no issue with looking into the future and trying to find better means to, for heating our homes and for filling up our vehicles. There's no doubt, but we're not there yet.
Right now, we're not exactly. If we went all electric, the grid would crash.
Oh,
we don't have the infrastructure.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the affordability of it yet.
Yeah.
Right, for people. I mean, I mentioned on the show last time, I believe it was on the Sam LaPrade show, actually, when I was filling in for Sam, is, we got somebody in and we wanted to do this hydronic, floor heating, and it's more environmentally friendly and it's less costly and so forth. The estimate we got was a fortune.
Yes.
And I'm not saying, again, we see a lot of European countries, they seem to be further ahead as far as, when it comes to, using green energy than we are. And I'm talking about individually, right?
Yeah.
When they build homes and using solar power and on and on. But it's as far as affordability in North America right now, it's not there, and it can't just be up to the government. There has to be a demand for it, and the more demand for it, the less, the less it's going to cost us, down the road.
Speaking of energy, I'm not sure if young people even know this, but Bitcoin uses huge amounts of energy.
Oh, absolutely.
To run those computers.
Do you know that the province of Quebec finally put a ban on Bitcoin companies coming to Quebec because they have excellent hydro rates, because they couldn't handle it. They couldn't handle it within their system.
And it seems like it's a younger generation thing, this Bitcoin.
I don't understand it still, Ed. I don't know how. I don't even know how to mine for gold. Never mind go mining for Bitcoin. Ed, appreciate the call. Thank you so much. And what Ed said, the minimum for an individual for single filing status under the age of 65 in this country, I believe is just over 12,000. It's like 12,300 or 12,400. So if your income is below that, you generally don't have to file a tax return at all. So are a lot of 16 and 17-year-olds, with part-time jobs making over 12,400? And if they do, how much taxes are they really paying? Okay, let's try to get to a couple more calls. Dave from Lower Town. Dave, what do you think about this topic?
Well, I'd like to qualify it sort of in a way that, there are some 16-year-olds who I'd say are probably more knowledgeable about a lot of things than a lot of 25 and 30-year-olds are.
For sure.
But I would like to say, though, that, looking at it in a general perspective, I don't think it's a good idea at all. The reason I'm saying that is I think that to qualify to vote, I think requires a maturity and experience gained through life, which I don't think you have at a young age of 15 or 16.
Yeah, and hats off to these young people who are acquiring the experience at these ages, right? They are acquiring these, and then when they go to vote, they are going to be well-informed voters. Fantastic.
Exactly.
Good.
Exactly.
I'm happy to hear it. Dave, I'm going to try to get to a couple of more calls here. Thanks so much for the call. Let's head over to... we'll head over to Darlene, who wants to talk incinerators. Darlene.
Good morning, Derick.
Good morning. How are you?
Not bad.
Excellent.
Yeah. I'm all in favor for incinerators and right in LeBreton Flats.
Really? At LeBreton Flats?
And it would be a wonderful tourist attraction.
A tourist attraction?
It really would. You find less people going to Parliament Hill and going down to see the garbage incinerator.
Make that as part of your tour. You can see the garbage incinerator at LeBreton and then head up to Parliament Hill and on to the Byward Market.
Yeah, and you can see more garbage up on Parliament.
I see what you did there, Darlene.
Yeah. But
slow clap for you there.
In Durham, I believe it's in Durham. It's a long time since I watched the virtual tour.
Okay.
It is absolutely fascinating. As I said to David, it reminded me of the old Hershey chocolate factory in Smith Falls.
Oh, I used to go there.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, my parents took us there, and then I was going to a camp nearby, and we used to go there. It was a great tour.
It was so clean, and it's fascinating to watch.
Absolutely. Darlene, I want to get into one more call here before we turn our attention over to the news at 11. Let's head over to James in Smith Falls. Last word for you, James, in the Talkback Hour, and you want to say something about LeBreton Flats.
Actually, LeBreton, and just on the teens trying to vote, just briefly on the teens trying to vote, I really think that we should go revamp the whole system where it comes down to an IQ test. If you don't know enough to come in out of the rain, you don't vote.
Okay.
Secondly, where's LeBreton Flats? A lot of people don't want to hear this, but a gentleman called in yesterday. I love the idea of a casino. The one that we currently have in Ottawa might as well be in Bosnia.
I agree.
Absurd location. There's no hotels there. You want to go out for a night and stay overnight, you're driving 40 minutes to go to a hotel. It's absurd.
Well, and James, I mean, and you have to think of it outside of, first of all, I live in Centertown. Where am I going to go? Do you think I'm going to go to the Rideau Carlton Casino, or am I going to go across the river to Lac Leamy?
Precisely.
Right, and then... Yeah. And if you're a tourist, James, and you come to this city, where are you going to stay? You most likely are going to stay downtown because that's where most of the attractions are, except for, guess what? A casino. Are you going to take your rental car or take an Uber out to Albion Road? I just don't see it happening. It was just such a poor decision. The other place I thought would have been great was Spark Street.
Well, exactly. I love Ottawa, but it's like where fun came to die. I don't understand why they have such ridiculous thought process. That, and even right down to naming their teams. The Red Blacks? Might as well call them
well, and that was another one of the NCC. We're joking this morning with Kelly Egan's article in the paper about, isn't that your whole... The role is to come up with ideas. I mean, isn't that what the NCC does? And then remember the Red Blacks, they asked the public to come up with a name for the new football team. We sent in hundreds of names, and then they went, thanks for all the names, but we're calling it Red Blacks. James, thanks so much for the call. Really appreciate it. All right, that does it for the Talkback Hour here today. Thanks so much. Fantastic conversations the last 3 days. Really appreciate all your calls and certainly respect all your opinions calling in. Don't go anywhere. We got lots more coming up here in the 11 o'clock hour. Coming up at 11 o'clock, Geoffrey York, African correspondent for the Globe and Mail based in Johannesburg, is going to join us. We're going to talk about the latest on the Omicron in South Africa. That's the latest COVID variant. We'll be back with that after this. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
It's Friday, December 3rd. Good morning. I'm Andrew Boyle. Right now, feeling like minus 12 in the wind. It's minus 6 in Ottawa, minus 5 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news in Ottawa and the Valley. The National Advisory Council on Immunization has released new recommendations for COVID booster shots in the face of the Omicron variant. Federal health officials are set to hold the briefing in just moments from now. Here's City News Parliament Hill reporter Cormac McSweeney.
The new recommendations posted online moments ago say that provinces may offer a booster shot to anyone 18 years and older as long as it has been 6 months since their second dose, with consideration of jurisdictional and individual risks. However, the Vaccine Advisory Group is strongly recommending the priority is given to anyone 50 years of age and older, people living in long-term care homes, those who are immunocompromised, Indigenous Canadians, those with 2 doses of AstraZeneca or 1 dose of Johnson & Johnson, and all frontline healthcare workers. Previously, the guidance had been for people 80 and older, with the mention that they can also be offered to people 70 and up. Despite NACI's recommendations, many provinces have already outlined their plans for mass booster shots for the general population. The new recommendations come days after the federal government urged NACI to update its guidance to provinces as the country and the world look to stop the spread of the Omicron variant. Cormac McSweeney, Parliament Hill.
Now, Ontario today reporting 1,031 more cases of COVID and 4 more deaths. Now, this is the first time since late May 30th, that there were over 1,000 cases reported of COVID on one single day in the province. 2.9% of almost 40,000 tests done came back positive. 58 more cases in Ottawa, 15 in Eastern Ontario, 12 in Renfrew County, 6 more cases in Leeds, Grenville, Lanark. City News time 11:03. Now your forecast with meteorologist Jill Taylor.
Well, the wind will settle down. Most areas will have plenty of sunshine today. The high just -4, -10 for the low, mainly cloudy tonight. And for the weekend, varying amounts of sun and cloud for Saturday. Could see some accumulating snow, though. The high -2. And then periods of snow on Sunday. Could see significant snowfall as well. High just -3. For today, the high -4.
And right now it feels like -12 in the wind. It's -6 in Ottawa, -5 in Smiths Falls. Ottawa Police collision team looking for witnesses to the fatal crash with a pedestrian last night in Canada. About 5:30, officers were called to March Road just north of Terran Road. A 38-year-old man from Ottawa crossing March heading east when he was struck by a 2021 red Kia Forte. The man was pronounced dead at the scene. If you saw the collision, assisted emergency responders or have dash cam footage and have not already spoken with investigators, you're asked to contact Ottawa Police. It was a major jump in the number of new employees last month. The United States creating 210,000 jobs. That was not as many as forecast. But Canada created 154,000. That was 4 times what many economists had figured there would be. Locally, Ottawa's unemployment rate dropped almost a full percentage point, now at 4.6%. Gatineau dropped slightly to 3.7%. The unemployment rate across Canada is 6% even. I'm Andrew Boyle for News Anytime. Follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
The world is changing.
So keep up with Rob.
The Rob Snow Show returns on Rogers TV and City News, 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. This is Derick Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV, filling in here on 1310 AM and 101.1 FM, as you just heard. We are joined right now by Africa correspondent for the Globe and Mail based in Johannesburg, Geoffrey York. Geoffrey, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Geoffrey, let's talk about the situation in South Africa at the moment. The infections, as I understand it, the latest figures have gone up yet again, even from the previous day of 8,500. What sort of rates are we seeing at the moment?
Well, yeah, the latest report from last night was 11,500 new cases, which means that the number of new cases has gone up almost 5-fold just in the past 4 days. And the positivity rate is now 22%. Just a couple of weeks ago, it was around 1 or 2%.
Right.
So it's just been soaring.
One of the issues, of course, that we've talked about on this show and that we've seen, people obviously in the media talking about quite a bit over the last few days is why the low number of vaccinated adults in South Africa. Can you detail some of the reasons behind that?
Well, the main reason is simply that the vaccines took so long to reach South Africa. I mean, South Africa was about 6 months behind the wealthier countries like Canada in terms of beginning the vaccination program. And that was because, it was just so difficult to get the vaccines if you're not a rich country that had been multiple ordering 4 or 5 times more than necessary, last year, long before vaccines were available. South Africa actually relied on the COVAX program, this non-profit program set up by the UN and so on. And they were promised vaccines. It turned out the only thing they could get from COVAX was going to be AstraZeneca, which was not effective against the Beta variant that was here. So they said no. And then they tried to get more, and they tried Johnson & Johnson. That was taking many, many months to arrive. They ended up paying top dollar for Pfizer. And that just took a long time to finally get the vaccination program going.
At this time, though, does the country have enough vaccines, or is that still a concern?
No, it has enough vaccines right now.
Yes, okay.
And we are seeing an increase in the vaccination rate right now because of the Omicron variant. Last week there was about 120,000 vaccinations per day during the week, and now it's about 170,000 per day. So that's like 30-35% increase in vaccinations over the past week. But yeah, it's true that South Africa does have enough right now. Most African countries do not, of course, including most of the 10 countries that were on the Canadian travel ban list.
And obviously the infrastructure is there as well, but is there any sense of urgency from the government at this time to roll out a vaccine mandate?
Well, they're considering it. I mean, it's difficult when you've got 36% of the population, 36% of adults are vaccinated. So, that's an early stage to begin thinking about vaccine mandates.
Right.
But it is one of the pressure tactics that can be used to maximize the rollout. And so, yes, they're studying it. There's growing support for it from business, from labor unions, from health experts. I would say there's more and more support for a vaccine mandate here.
What about social restrictions? What sort of social restrictions do we see in South Africa at the moment?
Well, it's not a full lockdown. It's what they call a level 1 lockdown, which is the sort of the mildest form of a lockdown. Really not a lockdown at all. Compared to the measures that were taken last year. There is a curfew for a few hours at night, but very few measures really. There is one thing that's interesting is that masks are still legally required in South Africa.
Okay.
I mean, that's fairly widely disregarded, but the law is still on the books.
Yeah, I just wonder why a level 1 situation, which you just described. I mean, there's not a lot of restrictions necessarily. Why a level 1? Why wouldn't you ramp that up to at least a 2 or 3? I mean, I don't know how many levels they have in South Africa at the moment, but I find that's quite concerning that it's taking the government so long to act on. Well, especially with only 36% of the adult population fully vaccinated.
Yes, but you have to consider the caseload. I mean, even though it's increasing, it's still far below the number of daily new cases that we're seeing in the UK or a lot of European countries,
right?
Or the US. So, yeah, it's increasing, but from a small base. I mean, there was very, very few cases a few weeks ago. So it's certainly going up at a very rapid rate, but from a very low base. So, yes, I mean, they probably will need to bring in greater restrictions. They took a 1-week pause to assess it. I mean, there was a speech to the nation from President Ramaphosa last Sunday, basically telling the nation that this is a serious situation. But he did not announce immediate lockdown measures because he wanted to take a few days to look at it. So we'll see what they do.
Right.
There's certainly a big concern coming up because we've got the Christmas season, which, in South Africa, that's combination of Christmas and summer holidays, and everyone's on the move. So that's a big, big concern.
You mentioned President Ramaphosa. I mean, also has had very strong opinions and criticized, of course, numerous countries that have put in a travel ban. Do you think he's getting anywhere with that? Has he had any? Has that opinion changed any country that has immediately put in a travel ban?
I don't think it's changed the minds of any country.
No,
but it's certainly getting a huge amount of support from global health experts, from health activists, from anyone who follows the epidemiology, scientists. I mean, there's huge support for this. I was looking at a comment a couple of days ago from from an infectious disease expert at one of the biggest. Well, I think the biggest hospital in Cape Town. Okay. And he said, the travel bans are just pointless. He's there on the front line every day in that hospital. He says the travel bans are pointless. It's too late. The community transmission has begun in many countries in Europe and elsewhere. And the impact on the economy, not just in South Africa, but all across Southern Africa, has been massive. I mean, these are countries that are heavily dependent on tourism. Their economies are suffering already. I mean, in South Africa, we're looking at an unemployment rate of about 46% if you include those who are discouraged and aren't trying for jobs anymore. So, effectively a 46% unemployment rate right now. And tourism was one of the very few sectors that had some growth potential as the pandemic was seemed to be winding down. And now it's being just hit with this massive blow all over again. We're seeing tourism operators reporting, more than half of their bookings have been canceled. It's just a huge blow, and it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of jobs in countries that cannot afford that kind of loss.
Has there been any consideration from President Ramaphosa to reach out to countries? And David and I were talking about this on the show. Perhaps there could be more global help and sending in military, setting up pop-up clinics, as fast as possible to get vaccinations into arms more quickly. And does he bother doing it? Would he even get any response?
Well, there have been conversations, actually.
Okay.
South African, I believe the South African foreign minister has talked to Canadian officials. So there have been conversations. But what people are really saying here, and we've seen again, global health experts, public health experts in South Africa, what they're saying is it's not so much on the vaccination side right now that South Africa needs help. What they need help on is support for their tourism sector, because that is what suffered as a result of the travel bans from Canada and elsewhere. So economic help to the tourism sector, some kind of support to kind of keep that sector alive at a time when it's almost dead, would really be appreciated. And there's a direct connection, right? I mean, you put in these travel bans, you prevent Canadian tourists from going to any of these southern African countries at the peak of the tourism season here, which is December, and you just have this massive damage to the tourism sector. So that's where they're looking for help, really.
Right. Geoffrey, really appreciate you sharing time with us. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Sure. Thank you.
All right. Take care. That's Geoffrey York, Africa correspondent for the Globe and Mail, based in Johannesburg. Coming up after the break, I'm going to talk a little bit more Sens, Ottawa Senators hockey. We talked about it earlier on in the show, but we want to get to the opinion of Steve Warne on that. We'll talk a little Major League Baseball lockout, perhaps this week in the NFL if we have time. Steve Warne coming up after the break. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow right here on Rogers TV and City News.
I always knew I was going to own my own business, and I've always wanted to have a store. And I sort of figured when the right concept came together at the right time, I would move forward with that plan. And so through doing some environmental initiatives in the restaurant group that I was with prior to opening this store, it just triggered my path towards being more environmentally conscientious and wanting to make more of a difference, and hopefully encouraging, inspiring other people to want to do the same, at which point the idea for All Eco was born. I have some really fun products. I have a really wide spectrum of products. So the things we look for in terms of qualifying products are sustainably made, upcycled, recycled, zero waste, all natural, no harmful chemicals to like the environment or to our bodies. We have like fun stuff, so like really clean burning candles, lots of really natural body care and skin care. I put a real emphasis on Canadian products. I really try to support up and comers, and I always source Canada first. The refill bar is really important to me. It's really huge. I think that's been exciting as well, because I thought it was going to be a real process in convincing people that this is a better way to go. And actually it was just like right away there was a built-in affinity towards doing refill, which has been great. We closed, I think, probably we were closed down by before the second week of March. Just didn't feel we could comfortably or confidently stay open, even though I do sell essential products, like in terms of the cleaning. But we just didn't feel we could make a safe space for ourselves or our customers at that time, and especially with the information we had at the time. So we did close our doors, at which point I did not have a website, because that was I hadn't even scheduled myself to have a website at that point. So that was sort of like full speed moving towards that and trying to drive the business, at the same time still get myself on the map because I was so new. So during that time, as we were building the website, we were still doing a lot of video shopping and private shopping, online shopping, like online phone, text. Any way I could do business, I was doing it. And there was really a nice show of support for my business during that time, which was really, really encouraging. And now, we are fully set up online too.
Fun.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News 101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show. You're going to get your political fix very soon, because we've got the Queen's Park Review coming up in the 11:30 time slot, of course, back to back. But we're going to get your sports fix in right now. Talk a little Sens, maybe some Major League Baseball lockout, some NFL. Veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster and host of the Sens Nation podcast, Steve Warne, joining us on the show. Steve, how are you this morning?
I'm very good, Derick. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. So I talked to a few things Sens with Wayne Scanlan a bit earlier on in the show, but wanted to get your opinion on this Sens team. I mean, a bit of a bright spot with a win last night. I will say not necessarily a convincing win when you're getting outshot, 49-20 last night. But Steve, I think, that 6-2 loss to Vancouver, that was the breaking point for many fans, breaking point for many people in the media as well. Is it time to look at changes in the front office here and with the coaching staff?
That's been my opinion.
Yeah.
I kind of got to that headspace this week. I feel like probably a coaching change would be a wise move at this stage, at least that. This has been a 5-year rebuild, and if you were seeing any level of development and growth and improvement, nobody was expecting them to make the playoffs. I mean, some did, but certainly nobody was expecting them to be a dominant team right now. But you needed to see at least the status quo or a little bit of improvement to say to yourself, okay, this is going in the right direction. There's that old adage. You have to be selling one of two things, winning or hope. And right now you don't have that. And what's more, the team just looks disorganized. Today's NHL is like a coach that can't just be about mottos and personality and rah. He has to be almost this choreographer, getting the team organized, getting systems in place. And too often, for too long now, this team has looked fully unorganized.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Steve. I mean, I look at the defense core, and sure, there's not a lot of excitement there beyond Shabbat and Zub. Del Zotto, Zaitsev, I mean, if he's not insulated by Shabbat, he looks like a complete disaster sometimes out there. Josh Brown, Victor Mete. I mean, it goes on. But you said it perfectly. There is no structure, even at the forward position when it comes to defensive play. I mean, they can't get a puck out of the zone either by passing, carrying the puck, or dumping it out. Last night, it was sort of like the 7th game in a row that I've been able to watch, and they can't even knock it on the boards and get it out and get it into the neutral zone. There's something wrong with the structure here.
I don't think there's any question, and a lot of people will point to the personnel factor. And yeah, there's room for improvement for sure. And within the organization, in the system, there's some nice young defensemen coming along, Jake Sanderson being Exhibit A. But right now, if you look around the NHL, Derick, and look at other rosters of other teams' blue lines, they don't have 6 Thomas Shabbats on their team.
Yeah.
Look around the league. Just make that an exercise. If you really feel like, okay, the Sens defense is absolutely just awful. I don't like the personnel there at all. They need to get 4 new guys in there. Look around the league. Check other teams' rosters. Like the LA Kings, they took on the Sens the other night. I was looking at their defense. And how are these guys successful? This isn't exactly a group of Norris Trophy winners. So, yeah, but they do need to get more organized. There's no question about that. And I feel like right now that the current crop behind the bench, they've had their go, and I'm not seeing the improvements that they need.
Yeah, I worry that Melnyk, because he's given him that extension, it may not happen, but I think it's what needs to happen at this point. I'm with you there. Let's turn our attention to Major League Baseball and the lockout. How did we get here exactly, Steve?
Well, it's basically the expiry of the collective bargaining agreement happened on Wednesday night, and it's the standard. Each side figures they want improvements. It's mostly a push from the players at this stage of the game, and they have some complaints.
Okay.
But the question of why is there a lockout? It's basically because people will say, okay, it's December. We're miles away from the start of the Major League Baseball season. Right now, you want to avoid what happened to the Expos in '94. You want to avoid basically dragging your way into a season without having a CBA. And that's what happened in '94, and the players went on strike in August. The season was canceled, and the Expos lost their chance at a World Series. So what do you do to get things going? The owners did the lockout right now because they want some urgency. They want to really provoke the players to get back to the table. And with a lockout, that means basically players can't do anything that involves a baseball team or their facilities. And the biggest thing there is no free agent signings and no trades until they have a new CBA. So that at least puts some pressure on the players to get back to the bargaining table so they can get something done in time for the start of the season and no one loses any money.
Steve, you've got to wrap – I can't wrap my head around this, and I'm sure some listeners can't either, because I see some of the contracts that have been signed recently. You're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars to a player. Like there are $335 million contracts being handed out. What could the players possibly be complaining about when you see money like that going out?
Yeah, the best are getting paid. There's no question about that. And you look at, there's a couple of guys in Max Scherzer, one of the best baseball pitchers in the last decade. Yeah. And then you also have Marcus Semien, who was elite for the Blue Jays this year. He was an American League MVP candidate. And they're both on the executive board, and they both just signed to King's ransoms. I'm thinking to myself, I'm a rank and file player. I'm not sure these guys necessarily have my best interests, but that's one of the things they're complaining about right now. Like, the top tier players are getting theirs, but the second and third tier players, they feel like they're not getting paid properly. You've also got the complaint that teams seem to be in constant rebuild, going cheaper and younger, which we know a few things about here in Ottawa.
Yeah.
And then that can limit their earning potential, right? So they want to see the league stop these perennially rebuilding teams or tanking teams, and they can make a little more money that way.
Okay, let's turn our attention over to the NFL this week, because I'm a huge NFL fan, and I just think there's some really compelling matchups this week. And I think the one that stands out the most, because you see the Bills have been struggling and the Patriots have been surging. This is going to be a huge game in the AFC East.
So many Bills fans in your listening audience, and it's just got to be frustrating to some degree when you think about the Bills and the Patriots. The Bills have been looking up at the Patriots with Belichick and Tom Brady for 20 years.
Yeah.
And finally Brady ends up in Tampa Bay, and New England last year finally, steps off their high horse, and they were not very good, and the Bills were great, and they win the division.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, here comes Mac Jones. The Patriots suddenly have their act together. They've won 6 straight. They're leading the division. And Bills fans must be going, come on, you had a 1-year rebuild and suddenly you're great again? That's not fair. But it is going to be a great matchup, I think, far and away for me anyway. That is your matchup of the week, and that'll be happening on Monday night.
Baltimore and Pittsburgh, I think, is another great, just a great rivalry in general, but I think another important game coming up this week.
Yeah, the Steelers have been, they're just not the Steelers.
They're a strange team.
Yeah, they sure are, and they just don't seem to have it this year, but it's always going to be a great matchup. That one is always, one of those games where you expect great defense. I think that's going to be a terrific matchup as well. The Ravens certainly one of the class of the National Football League right now, best team in the AFC at 8-3. So I think they're going to be a tough out for Pittsburgh. So while it is a compelling matchup historically speaking, I really think the Ravens are going to go into Pittsburgh and basically mop the field with them.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't know. I just find the teams that that play each other in the same division, sometimes it can really surprise you, a matchup like that. I think it's going to be a little bit closer, but who knows? Sounds
like you want to put a little money on this.
Oh, here we go. We'll speak off the air on that. I know we don't want to encourage betting here, Steve. The last team I think that, just quickly to mention is the Rams. I mean, this is a team that looked good, so good. They've had some excellent pickups, and they need a win against a struggling Jags team, although the Jags have played better in recent weeks. But there's a team that needs a win pretty bad.
Yeah, and they shouldn't have any problem in that regard, but you worry about their quarterback in Matthew Stafford. He's been really good for them most of the season, but I think he's run into injuries. It's not just one injury. That guy seems to have multiple injuries, and he's playing through it all, but he hasn't quite been the same quarterbacks like he was in the first 6-7 weeks of the season. But that is still a high-octane offense, and certainly Sean McVay is one of the better coaches around the NFL. They'll have no problem this week, but it'll be interesting. I would imagine if they can, they'd probably try and get Stafford out of that game in the second half if they get it under control, because it all basically rests with him if that team's going anywhere this year.
Yeah, agreed. Steve, thanks so much for joining us. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, take care. That's Steve Warne, veteran Ottawa sports broadcaster, host of the Sens Nation podcast, and a lot of great sports coming up this weekend. So if you're a sports fan, it'll be an exciting weekend. If you're a political fan, which we are on this show, on the Rob Snow Show, you're going to want to stay tuned because it's time for the Queen's Park Review coming up after the break. Lots to talk about. This is Derick Fage filling in on the Rob Snow Show here on Rogers TV and City News.
local news in Ottawa and the Valley. This is City News, now on 101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
This is Friday, the 3rd of December. Good morning, I'm Jason White. Right now in Ottawa, mainly sunny, -6. It's -5 in Smiths Falls. Here's what's making news this hour. New COVID-19 vaccine guidance from the National Advisory Council on Immunization, which says provinces can offer COVID booster shots to anyone 18 years and older, as long as it's been 6 months since their second dose. However, the group strongly recommends priority be given to anyone 50 years of age and older, healthcare workers, as well as other high-risk groups. Ottawa police looking for anyone who witnessed a pedestrian being struck and killed late yesterday in Canada. Happened around 5:30 in the afternoon on March Road, just north of Tarrant. A 38-year-old Ottawa man was crossing March when he was struck, and he was pronounced dead at the scene. Witnesses are asked to contact Ottawa police. More provincial cash to help children and teens with eating disorders, and some of it is going to CHEO. There's been a surge in that and in mental health challenges in kids since last March. CHEO will receive more than $4.4 million to increase inpatient capacity and care for more than double the number of kids and youth it sees today. Findlay Creek is getting a new Catholic elementary school. The school will have capacity for more than 500 students and will be built at the corner of Farm and Findlay Creek Drives. The $13.2 million building will also house 39 licensed childcare spaces. City News Time 11:32. I'm Jason White. For news anytime, follow up online at ottawa.citynews.ca.
He's a pillar of community opinion.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM
and 1310 AM.
Welcome back to the Rob Snow Show here on City News. This is Derick Fage filling in for Rob Snow. It's now time. We talked a lot of sports today. It's time to talk some more politics because we love politics on this show. You know, each and every Friday we wrap things up with the Queen's Park Review, and I am joined by the usual suspects, most of them. Gilles Bisson, NDP MPP for Timmins, John Fraser, Liberal MPP for Ottawa South, and Donna Skelly, PC MPP for Flamborough and Glanbrook. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Friday. My goodness, this is a great way to wrap up a Friday on a show because, you know, people love, this is Ottawa. We love talking politics. This is Ontario. We love talking politics. So let's start with...
But for MPPs, it's only the beginning of our week.
There's a lot of barbecues to attend over the weekend.
A lot of events.
Yeah, exactly. Let's start with Omicron. Ontario, this is the new variant, has a lot of people concerned, and rightfully so. Ontario has responded by expanding booster shot eligibility while we wait for additional information on the new virus. Let's talk about this approach. I'll start with you, Gilles. What do you think about this approach?
Well, first of all, Omicron, and when I first heard them call it Omicron, I thought I was watching a Doctor Who movie.
You and I both.
Really? You're going to call it Omicron? This is like a science fiction.
Either that or the new Transformer movie.
Exactly. But no, listen, I think in fairness to everyone, nobody at the beginning of this thing knew how to deal with, how do you deal with a pandemic in the way that we have. So I think we've learned some things. I think there were hard lessons learned by the government. I'm not sure they've learned all the lessons they've got to learn. But, we're initially doing the things that we've got to do. I still think we have a problem in education. We should be looking at being able to reduce class sizes, something that we've called for a long time. And there's a number of other things that government could do that they're not. But I think generally, we're trying to get our way through this. And I think if you look at the numbers in Europe, yesterday in Germany, there were 75,000 cases in one day, with a population obviously larger than Canada. But, we're doing not too badly. And I think the reason for that is really simple. The public, by and large, is taking this seriously. They're saying, wear a mask, don't intermingle with people if you don't have to, be careful, get vaccinated, and that's what the majority of people are doing.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up some of the positives, Gilles, because there is some positives, and I spoke to David about it earlier on in the show that we've done such a really good job here as a nation, as a province, here in Ottawa. We've done a fantastic job as well as far as, vaccinations go.
The public has to be thanked. The reality is it doesn't happen unless the public buys in. And by and large, the public has bought in. So could government have done different things? Absolutely. But I think in the end, the public is doing what's right.
Look at that, John. Some positivity. What do you think? John, what do you think about the approach?
I agree. I think Ontarians have really stepped up. The early indications, there's still a lot more to find out about, is it does spread faster, and that vaccines still are effective. But there's still a lot more to come in, and I think doing the boosters are coming up on December 13th. That's important. What's really important right now is getting our kids vaccinated. I think across Ontario we have about 14%. So we have to help parents, make sure that parents get information. They have questions. In the States, I think they've given 3 million doses of vaccine, and with no critical adverse events. Our 3 grandchildren, 2 of them are vaccinated right now. The third one will be this weekend. And we have to help parents to make those decisions and get it done, because protecting our kids is job one right now.
Yeah, Donna, obviously, I think it goes without saying you probably agree with the approach, and that it's a prudent approach. But, John brings up an excellent question, and that is, are we getting young people vaccinated fast enough? And I'll give hats off to the provincial government. I think they've done an excellent job, especially with these after-school pop-up clinics. How do you feel things are going as far as a member of the PC party?
Well, I think along with my colleagues in the Premier, we have to really recognize the efforts put forward by Ontarians right across the province. Our numbers are staggering, and if you compare us to Europe, for example, we are far better ahead. We're in a much better position. 90%, as of today, 90% of eligible, that's anybody over 12, eligible Ontarians have received their first dose. 89% now with second dose. We're rolling out the 5 to 11s. We have seen a bit of an increase in the number of cases, but the real numbers to follow are the number of people in hospital and the number of people who are in ICU, and they are very low. Right now, we sit at 286 hospitalizations, the bulk of whom, the majority of whom, are unvaccinated. That also is reflected in the numbers of ICU, which is now under 150. If we can manage those numbers, we're going to get through this. But it's all because Ontarians have stepped up and are getting shots in the arm.
Donna, what about on the federal level? With this new variant and the decision to shut our borders to specific countries, thoughts on that?
It's critical.
Yeah.
They were slow in the initial, when we first realized that we were in the middle of a pandemic. They kept the borders open. It was quick, and I commend them for that. I commend them. I mean, it is a federal issue. They have to tighten the borders. They are doing that, and that is one of the critical areas of keeping this new variant to a minimum and preventing further variants from getting in and across the border.
And I think it has to be said, the government, the federal government, did move quicker this time in order to, restrict people crossing the border. But we still have an issue. And the first thing we all have to say, and we're going to agree with this, nobody likes being locked down. Nobody likes restrictions when it comes to traveling. We all hate it. So let's all agree. You don't have to be for or against vaccines to like or not dislike what's going on as far as restrictions. But the reality is we are a connected world. A person who gets on a plane somewhere in the world can go anywhere and then come into Canada. And so who knows how far this is going to go? It's a question that has to be asked. But the government federally has moved on it a little bit faster than they did last time.
However, the argument that's been made, and we had a doctor on the show a little bit earlier, that banning flights from specific countries isn't necessarily the answer. John, maybe you can speak on this. Isn't necessarily the answer. The answer is, the testing and the quarantining, because this virus has already found itself in all over Europe, where we've seen it here in Canada. It's already here.
Yeah, and that's the point I was making. But go ahead, John.
So they make, quite frankly, that it could have started in Europe, and some indications are now that it started in Europe and got to South Africa. So it's just, sometimes picking and choosing who can fly in is it doesn't work, and that. But you do have to put restrictions at the border, in the sense that you have to go with vaccinations, and put testing and isolation in place, so that you can stop the spread in the community. And then the other big piece is get people getting vaccinated here, following the public health measures like masking, getting tested when you're sick, social distancing, and so the thing is, the likelihood is these things will end up here, and it's what we do here that makes a big difference when they get here. All right. So if we get all our kids vaccinated, they'll be safer.
Yeah.
So those are the things that I think that we, and it's all about just reducing risk and doing the things that you need to know to do that will protect you and your family.
Gilles, you wanted to jump in here, I think?
No, and I agree with John, and I was just going to say, in the end, vaccinations doesn't mean to say that you're not going to get COVID. You can still get COVID.
Right.
But I think you made the point earlier is that if you get vaccinated, you're not going to get as sick. And that's what people need to get through their imagination when it comes to why you need to get vaccinated. It's so important because, as Donna was saying, we can't afford to have our hospitals overflowed with people with COVID because it means cancer treatment and a whole bunch of other things that we need to do don't get done. And that is just as dangerous as this pandemic.
Well, and the reinfection rate for Omicron is dramatically worse than the other variants, especially for those unvaccinated. Let's move on to another topic, and that is the Ontario Auditor General's annual report. Not 100% accurate is what Doug Ford is saying. Want to get reactions to the report, but I'll go to Donna first, and just because, listen, in defense, before Donna speaks here, in defense of this report, I mean, when a lot of people looked at it, it was a lot to do about nothing for the most part. Listen, there's a lot of money we're talking about here, $1 billion. There's the $210 million for sure. But Donna, did anything stand out to you that you were surprised to see in this report? And how quickly do you think they're going to react on this report?
I am very comfortable with this file. Prior to becoming the PA to the Attorney General, I was the PA in Economic Development and worked on these files closely and worked with Ontarians, small business owners right across the province. And the comment about the month of April, focusing on April, is very important to talk about because when these programs were designed, they had to pick a month to compare loss in revenue. So they picked April. And if you showed a loss of revenue, you were eligible from April of 2019 to 2020. The problem was, and I quickly realized it when I had people asking me why they didn't necessarily qualify for this funding, was if you were in, for example, the tourism sector, you may have seen your loss in the summer months. So we worked with these small business owners. They weren't fraudulently applying for the money. It's just that month of April didn't reflect the significant loss that they were realizing. Was a bit of money, and yes, it was $200 million. It's not a little bit of money, but in the overall picture, $3.4 billion going out the door to 120,000 small businesses. You will see some people perhaps get money that they weren't eligible for, but I would suggest to you that the bulk, and I would say almost all of the applicants were not putting in a fraudulent application. They were desperate. And I spoke for hours with people who own small businesses who were just in tears because they were at the verge of closing their doors. If they got a bit of money to keep their doors open and to keep people employed, so be it. That's what this was designed for. And I'll tell you, it worked because our numbers, our unemployment numbers or employment numbers came out today, and we are actually higher than we were pre-pandemic. Just since May, we have seen an increase of 421,000 jobs. So the money that flowed back then, and let's be honest, both the official opposition and the Liberals were critical of us not giving more money to small businesses. So I would suggest that this was probably a better thing, that most of these people were not putting in a fraudulent application.
They were probably speaking to eligible businesses, though, Donna. Okay, little joke there, a little shot there, admittedly. We're going to, I know Gilles and John are chomping at the bit here. I'll let you get in after the break. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back with the Queen's Park Review here on the Rob Snow Show. This is Derick Fage filling in right here on City News.
It's a space that needs to be lived in. It's a space that people have to have an experience of more than just art on the walls. I think, yes, the art on the walls is fun, and it's fun to walk around and see all the beautiful things, and the way Dominic and Edith have curated the gallery is certainly something worth seeing. But coming by and asking questions, again, to Dominic's point of view is, interrupt him, ask questions. I'm here on most of the days too. We have Luce that comes in, Nancy that comes in. So we have quite a few opportunities for people to come in and see the process, and of course ask a few questions. It's a great space. Basically, the one event that we did do, is the jazz shows, the jazz and blues shows. And I think the weird thing to let you know is that the acoustics in here are really amazing. I think that was the first thing that blew me away when we started doing shows, or when I was helping out with the shows. The other part of the business too is we do rent it out for special occasions too. So a few weddings, birthday parties, product launches, that kind of thing. So they're also a lot of fun. We do have one artist that's from the States, but not, of the 30 odd artists, the rest are from either Quebec, Ontario, and one beautiful woman from BC. It's definitely part of the philosophy to maintain and canvas and show the beauty that we have in our backyard. You have the very, very strong personalities in Edith and Dominic, of course. It's wonderful to see how that actually balances out in the rest of the gallery. Without necessarily being, an objective, we basically have half female artists and half male artists in this gallery. But I can't say it's anything more than choosing the best people, and that's just the way it is. And I love that. I think it's great. You go through and you're like, wow, it's all pretty cool. And it's half are women and half are men. It's cool. Like everyone else, we didn't know what to think, right? It's overwhelming at first. You just know that things are closed. And now you're trying to figure out what you do during that downtime, which I think everyone did. And I think in March, the first close, the first shutdown, it was a lot of actually recuperating and resting and not worrying too much on the spot. It's running a gallery is a bit like running a marathon with sprints. So there comes a time where, it's actually nice to just take a break. And then you wake up and realize that, okay, now it's time to wake up and deal with this new reality. From my perspective anyways, I think a gallery can be overwhelming, and I like to make it fun. So you're going to come in, I'll ask you questions, I might even joke around with you. The most people come here, they're not really going to buy art, but they could have a fun time and talk about it, right? And one of the things the gallery does offer is for local purchases, we'll be happy to drive it to your house and hang it for you.
United Ottawa icon.
The Rob Snow Show returns
on Rogers TV and City News.
101.1 FM and 1310 AM.
Although I do like to think of myself as an Ottawa icon, I am not Rob Snow.
You're approaching icons.
Oh, you think? Thank you, David.
Approaching.
Very good.
A few years.
A few years away. I'm older than Rob even, but no, he is the true Ottawa icon. I hand the baton to you, good sir. Rob, by the way, will be back on Monday. Never fear, he'll be back with his opinions on everything that's happening in the world, including politics. Last we left the Queen's Park Review, we had Donna Skelly, PC MPP for Flamborough-Glanbrook. I guess, defending the Ford government when it comes to the Auditor General's annual report. And now it is time for the rebuttal, friends. And we turn our attention to John Fraser, Liberal MPP for Ottawa South. John, what did you think of the report? What's your reaction?
Well, my reaction was, the Auditor General, it's not 100% correct. Well, what percent is correct is, Premier. It's unusual that he says that about the Auditor General because that's not what they've been saying for a long time in the Conservative Party. But the other piece he says, look, you're going to get fraud. And I just turned to Donna and say, well, there's no fraud. And actually,
I didn't say there's no fraud.
Donna, can I finish? Donna, it's not actually about fraud. It's actually about not doing something well. It's about incompetence. So $210 million went to people who were totally ineligible.
Right.
And then almost $1 billion, including that, went to people who got more than they needed. But what I also know is that there are people in my riding who said, I needed this, but I didn't get it. Mm-hmm. And so...
It's what happens, though, John, when you roll things out quickly like this, and then you're going to be, the argument's going to be, you rolled it out too quickly when things like this happen, and then if they waited, the argument would be you didn't roll it out quick enough and all these businesses suffered.
Yeah, this wasn't March 2019.
No, I understand that.
2020. It wasn't March. They had 9 months.
Well, we also hold on. Going back to March 2019, John, let's be honest. Many of us thought, well, this is a 3 or 4 week thing, and we'll be done with it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is they had months to plan to make it effective, and actually maybe started earlier to get it out the door. But it was rushed just before Christmas. It went through Treasury Board planning and cabinet approval, Treasury Board and cabinet approval, like in 2 days. So that's fast. And look. People needed money. I have that was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is if you didn't do it well, say, look, we didn't do it well. We made mistakes.
Well.
No, you didn't. We made mistakes. And what you got to say.
All right, John, you've had your say. Let's get Gilles in here.
So listen, the auditor speaks for herself. Just read the darn report. And what amazes me is what John just said. You know, I remember Mr. Jakubowski and all kinds of conservatives used to love the auditor. Now they're questioning, you know, how accurate she is. I think that's
a good point, actually.
It's a little bit rich. But here's what I want to say. All us MPPs got calls from our small business and medium-sized business sector. They all called us to say, I've applied and I can't get the money. And they couldn't get the money for a whole bunch of different reasons. We'll get into that if we had time.
Right.
The point is, the government never adjusted the program. We were calling, all of us MPPs in Ontario, we're calling Mr. Fideli's office, who was responsible for this program, and the thing never got adjusted. So, yeah, maybe they rolled it out wrong. Maybe they didn't make the right decisions. Fair enough. It was a quick response that needed to be done. But the government never adjusted. And what's worst is, at one point, the minister's office says, we're not taking your complaints anymore. Well, we didn't even have a place to go in order to be able to say business X who has applied has got nothing, and they were denied for a reason that doesn't make sense. I'll just give you one example.
Okay.
I had 2 businesses in the same area, the same thing. One got accepted, the other didn't. And so when we tried to get Mr. Fideli's office to say, hey, listen, how does this make any sense? The essentially response was, well, we're not taking complaints anymore. Well, there was a problem with the program. The government should have adjusted it, and that's what they didn't do, and they gave money to people that didn't need it as much as others.
I just have to jump in there.
Sure, John.
I would say
go ahead.
that it's not giving money to people, some people who needed it more than others. This was fairly quick to respond in the midst of a pandemic.
Nobody argues that.
And we did modify the eligibility requirement when it came to that. And I keep using the April because that was the initial month to be eligible. And this is all, you know, very boring for people who are listening. But
can I give you the applications? I'll give you the copy of the application of all those people that were denied, right?
Yeah, go ahead, Donna.
Gilles, I dealt with them
on
a daily basis. And I'm telling you, we did change it so that, for example, seasonal businesses could apply because they could not show a loss in a month that they weren't open from year to year. So we did modify the application process, and I was able to resubmit a number of these applications, and these people received it.
I'm going to turn our attention to something a little different here, and I'm not encouraging people going out and enjoying too many beverages here. But, you know, to add some levity, a little bit of levity to this situation, perhaps it's not very funny for some people, but the LCBO, ladies and gentlemen, is warning of a shortage of booze this holiday season. Yeah, you heard it.
Was that John?
Donna, what can the government do about this? Especially the champagne is in short supply. Can you imagine all the wealthy people?
Short supply. Can you imagine all those champagne socialists in the Liberal Party? What are they going to do?
Well played.
I thought we were the. Hang on. I thought we were the champagne socialists. Come on, you're not being fair, Donna. Come on.
The LCBO has recognized it, and it's so funny. You know, I was listening to the ads in the commercial break, and one of the advertisers was talking about the worldwide supply chain problem. This is going to be a problem worldwide. There may be, however, an upside, and that could be that consumers in Ontario purchase more Niagara wine, more Ontario spirits, more craft beer. Let's hope that if there is a shortage, they turn to locally produced products. And there's
that is a good point, Donna. I'll give you that. That's actually a good point.
Yeah? John, what kind of champagne is it that you drink? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
I don't drink champagne. I've had it a few times in my life.
You let somebody else buy it for you.
You know what?
I've done that, Donna.
When we were young, there used to be a thing, I think it's still around, Asti Spumante, which was this sparkling wine. It was like,
oh my God, it was. Oh, I'm not going to say that.
It was like a sugar hit.
It's like 125 grams per liter of sugar in that stuff. It's insane.
My mother-in-law used to drink that.
Yeah, unbelievable. Well, see, we left on a fun note, everybody. We left on a fun note. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate it. Gilles Bisson, NDP MPP for Timmins, John Fraser, Liberal MPP for Ottawa South, and Donna Skelly, PC MPP for Flamborough-Glanbrook. Thanks so much.
We're going to win on Sunday, I mean.
Oh, yeah.
Have to, for sure.
Oh, I love it. I love it. There's a great way to wrap things up. Thank you so much, all of you, and really appreciate talking to you each and every week. Hey, that does it for us here on The Rob Snow Show. I'm Derick Fage, host of Daytime Ottawa on Rogers TV. I'm running to the station right now because guess what? I have a live television show at 2 p.m. You should tune in. You can live stream it on rogerstv.com. If you miss it at 2, we repeat at 6 and 11. So how do you like that? Always a pleasure. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Rob will be back on Monday. And don't touch that dial because coming up after your news is the Sam LaPrade Show. Thanks so much. This is Derick Fage signing off on City News.